Okay, check one, check two. Microphone check 1 2 1 2. Let me know if I'm audible. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Well, I just quickly pull up the hello wildflower. Macy, I'm audible. Thank you, LG. Ifyoma. Hello everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I know that I had this scheduled for yesterday. So those of you who turned up yesterday and then maybe like an hour before suddenly saw it rescheduled for another time, you're not going mad. That was me. It was a last minute reschedule. So I did that. It's the Christmas time. You know how it gets. I just didn't feel very up for doing a live stream yesterday. I was feeling far too tired. So I thought, okay, let me put it off for a day. And here we are today. So thank you for joining me. And yeah, today should be an interesting stream. At least I think so. It should be relatively lightweight in terms of content. Just to give an overview. Today works better for me as well. Thank you, Macy. And well rested, yes, well rested, but still tired. It's funny how the more you sleep, the more you want to sleep, isn't it? that tends to be the rule, doesn't it? You know, if you think I'm gonna be a bit lazy, and then before you know it, you're just sloughing around, not doing very much. But that, you know, that's a privilege in itself. So let's not take that for granted. I'm very grateful the fact that I do have a time of year when I can really take the foot off the gas and just spend time with friends and family. So there you go. That's a good thing. So yes, I'm very grateful and I'm enjoying the holidays. Thank you for asking. I hope everyone else is too. I hope everyone's getting an opportunity to spend some time with friends and family and loved ones, and just, you know, regardless of what your thoughts are around the actual festivities and the rituals of Christmas, whether or not you're a believer, whether even if you are a believer but you don't want to engage in the pagan activities, at least take the time to enjoy the you know, the time off and the fact that other people have been granted holidays at the same time. You know, I guess that's the one takeaway. You know, it was really interesting, and this is going to come up on one of my, you know, we did that, the last live stream I did was that Instagram live stream, which worked quite well. I think I'll do that again because it's just an opportunity for us to just talk about more random things without having to do too much prep, just have a conversation about different things that go on. But I saw a really interesting Instagram feed the other day, or Instagram post the other day, I should say. And it was about the fact that the origins of Christmas can be traced back to ancient Egypt, which was wild to me because I was totally 100% under the impression that it was a European pagan activity linked with Wicca and all of those kind of. I know there's a long history in the British Isles of people, you know, Holly, and we have songs like Holly and the Ivy, which is all about, you know, these Wicca activities. Before Christianity was introduced, Wicca was quite heavily adhered to amongst the British populations and other European populations. So I thought that's where the Christmas tree came from. Turns out I was wrong. Apparently the Christmas tree idea can be seen, well, I saw it, so I do want to verify it, but it looked pretty. There was Christmas tree and what appeared to be a red and white thing that looked like a candy cane on top of the Christmas tree in ancient Egypt. And it was a time when they used to exchange gifts, and it was someone's asking me questions like solstice, and I don't know enough. I'm going to go away and see if I can find some more, but from what I could see, there was like evergreens. I think it was Levi. There's a TikToker called Levi Baseman. I can't remember his name. Some of you might know him, Levi something. He's been heavily suppressed. He's got like well over a few million followers. He's a black guy with dreads. He's an American guy. He's really knowledgeable. I actually like him. He's really knowledgeable, very unapologetic kind of people that I kind of like to follow. And anyway, he was talking about the origins of Christmas, and the fact they had evergreens, and they were able to and they dressed them and kind of decorated them in baubles and blah blah blah. And I thought, this is wild. Ancient Egypt, that's crazy. And you know what's more crazy as well? Because in the Bible, I know that the Bible forbids Christmas as well. So in the Bible, it talks about not cutting down a tree, and not putting up a tree in your house, and not decorating your tree with gold and silver. So it's really funny because you've got these alleged, I'm going to say alleged because I haven't verified myself, but these alleged ancient Egyptian origins. Then you've got the Bible, which forbids it. But then you've got the Christians, who are the ones who actually maintain the participation of Christmas, and probably adhere to these things more than anyone else. So it's a great royal mess of historical rituals and adherences that I just think is hilarious. So for me, being the kind of secular layman I am, I just like to observe these things from a distance and just enjoy and participate in the things that I think are fun and will be fun for me, and that's it. I don't think too much deeper than that. Who's right, who's wrong, God only knows. Yeah, I'm gonna try and find the name of that guy, Zayhoven. I was hoping someone would come up and tell me what his name is, because he's quite popular. He's got like 3 million followers or something like that, and it's a black guy. He's got dreads, and he's really, really well spoken. He's one of those guys you like to listen to because he speaks really well, but he's also very unapologetic. And it's an American guy. Really love his content. Can't remember his full name. I'll see if I can find it on my TikTok feed before the end of the live stream. So anyway, that's that. I just want to give you that a little bit of that background. I thought that was just quite funny. Learning new things about Christmas every year. I used to be quite a bit of an antagonist and really wind up all of my Christian friends and family during Christmas and have a good laugh at them, celebrating their pagan festival and making myself very popular doing that. And now I'm gonna have to change that whole approach now because it seems to be a pre-pagan festival, so to speak. So there you go. Let's get cracking. All right, so there's 70 of us online, which is really good numbers. So what did I want to do today? A lot of people are asking, just to be clear, a lot of people are asking questions about Christmas, and I don't know that much about it. I'll be totally honest with you. So feel free to have a little discussion about it. If you do know, share some love and share some insight. I'm sure people would appreciate it. By the way, can I just say that I go on a lot of live streams, and the live stream chat in my live streams, you guys as a community, is top tier. I really have to say that. Every live stream I do, after it's finished, I go back and I listen to it at some point, not to listen to the live stream again, but just to read through the chat as the live stream is taking place. And you guys always come with some real insight and real fire. So the live stream chat, leave at the basement. There you go, boom. Zehoven. That's exactly who it is. That's exactly who it is. Nice one, brother. Yeah, so that's the guy. Leave at the basement. He was talking about it. And I thought that was, he dropped the bomb. So if you can find him, that's the dude. So yeah, in terms of the live stream chat that we have on this community, it's really good. You guys are top tier. So I like it when the live stream's active. It just makes it even more informative and more enjoyable. So yeah, there you go. So let's get cracking. What's I going to talk about today? I wanted to talk about my visit to the Vatican and wanted to just basically go through images I've taken. I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to be dropping any massive revelations today. We're going to do it like we do our normal museum visits, and I think I've done quite a few on this channel now. I've done a live stream about my visit to the British Museum, well, at least a couple of live streams on that one. I've done a live stream about my visit to the Louvre, Paris. I've done a live stream about my visit to the Neues Museum in Berlin, and I feel like I've done another one. I can't remember what that is. So this is just another one. This is a visit to the Vatican, and I like these. Just the opportunity to kind of show you what's there, what to expect if you're planning a visit there, and the kind of things that I encountered and what kind of thought processes they triggered. Obviously, as you can imagine, I don't take pictures of everything. I just take pictures of things that just trigger my interest, and that tends to be based on what's going through my head at that moment in time, what I find interesting. I guarantee you a revisit to the British Museum or the Noise. In fact, I went to the British Museum the other day with my son, but a revisit to the British Museum, the Noise, or the Louvre will probably point me in a completely different direction to where I was when I did the last live stream. So yeah, obviously make your way there if you're planning on going anyway, but hopefully this will give you a bit of information. And yeah, that's that. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So actually, just a quick one. Does anyone know, what do we know about the Vatican? Because I didn't. One of the reasons I wanted to go is because I knew it was like full of good stuff, but I actually didn't know the Vatican first of all was a place that you could visit before. I thought it was this kind of like closed off place, this closed off city that, you know, only popes could enter. I swear, I believed that up until about a few years ago. And then people started, you know, obviously I saw a few people posting pictures of them inside. I was like, oh, you can visit the Vatican. That would be interesting. So as soon as I found out you could visit the Vatican, I started plotting my descent on that land. And hey, you know, there you go. This is where I went. It's not a big city, by the way. So I thought the Vatican was going to be really, really big, given that it's got its status as its own nation. So I think all of you will know that the Vatican is actually legally its own nation. So it's not actually a part of Rome or it's in Rome, but it's not a part of Rome. It's not a part of Italy. It's its own nation. Apparently the Vatican is its own country, apparently. So that's interesting, but it's not very big. It's actually really small. And I think I did walk from one end to the other quite effortlessly. So it's tiny, 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 and it didn't take me very long either. It's like the size of it's like the size of, you know, some lord owned land that you get in England. Sometimes you get these like gated off areas and they go on for a couple of square miles and you find out it's owned by some dignitary and that's why there's a gate all the way around it. We got one actually right in the middle of Victoria in London, and that's about the same size as it is. It's not very big. It's very small. So there you go. But yeah, the Vatican is an interesting place, and so we'll dive in now. Before we get cracking, I did want to just give you a bit of background about kind of the things that you see, about the Vatican itself. So the key structures in Vatican City really are St Pieters Basillica, and which is a church, for want of a better word, but it's a basilica. I don't know if that's actually the word for church, but it's a very large and special church. Amazing architecture and construction, I have to say, by the way. The Sistine Chapel, which was, by the way, St Pieters Basilica was actually designed by Michelangelo. He actually allegedly, I say allegedly because a lot of these stories I just take it with a pinch of salt. But anyway, he allegedly designed many of the domes that are in St Peter's Basilica. Then you have the Sistine Chapel, which is famous because it has the frescoes that were painted by Michelangelo. Now, here's where I'm going to disappoint everyone who's on the live stream. I didn't get to the Sistine Chapel. It was very much my intention to get to the Sistine Chapel, but I was there. I went there on the second day that I was in Rome, and then I intended to go before I left, and then I ended up leaving early. And so I didn't get a chance to revisit the Sistine Chapel. So out of all of the structures that I've managed to get pictures of, sorry, Wildflower, you're going to see nothing about the Sistine Chapel here. I'm so sorry. But don't worry, we got St. Peter's Basilica. We got St. Peter's Courtyard, for want of a better word. and we have the Vatican Museums, which was a bonus because I didn't even go there expecting to see the museums, but the Vatican has a number of very, very well stocked museums. These museums are not, I would say, are no ways second place to the Louvre in Berlin. I think there's probably a very well kept secret. The museums in Vatican City, they are top tier in terms of the kind of things they have inside them. So yeah, that's like a bonus because I wasn't even expecting that part. So yeah, there you go. So they've got the museums there and they are really, really good. So I've got a few images of some of the cool stuff that I've seen in some of the museums. And then there's the Vatican Library, which I didn't visit also. So, but I didn't think it would have been that valuable to me because I'm guessing everything would have been written in Latin and Greek, or Galatian Portuguese or Galatian Italian, and all these languages that I basically can't read. So I don't think there would have been a great deal of value I would have got from the Vatican Library, other than fawning over the texts, because I do love a good library. But that's why I utilize the British Library. But they have a number of works in the Vatican Library, such as codexes, which are kind of like normally your early written scriptures or Bibles. I don't believe any of them for the dates. Apparently they have a 4th century Greek Bible. So that's apparently, but I don't think there's a Bible that's that old that really exists. But apparently it's there. The Codex Vaticanus apparently is a 4th century Greek Bible. So yeah, I can't really argue with that. Most of the things that you see in the Vatican as well were built in the 15th and 16th century. So the entire Vatican City, most of the construction date for the major buildings of the 15th and 16th century, apart from St Peter's Square, which was built in the 17th century. Now this will become a factor of some of the observations that I make as well. Khufu says they have the best stuff hidden underground. I know. I have to work out a way that I get into some of these hidden vaults. I'm still working out how I get into the British Museums hidden vaults as well. Yeah, so interesting, So yeah, I just wanted to kind of give that overview so we kind of know what we're looking at. And I think without any further ado, we can get cracking now. So that's enough of an intro. Let's get started. So St. Peter's Square was the first thing I was confronted with. So I'm just going to play this video that I took or a couple of videos when I entered St. Peter's Square, and I kind of captured you just to give you an idea of the vastness of it. Now, bear in mind, this panned shot that I just showed you guys, those pillars are humongous. So I just want to give you an idea of the scale here. I'm going to flip forward to the next video. And if you just have a look at these figures that sit in atop, this is St. Pieters Basillica, by the way. And these figures that are sitting on top, these statues that are sitting on top, are all a part of St. Peter's Square. And there's like over 100 of these. I can't remember what the exact number is. In fact, let me see if I can find the exact number. The exact number is, boom, 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 bear with me. 140 statues. Yeah, 140 statues sitting on top of St. Peter's Basilica. So, St. Peter's Square, and they go all around you. So you've got to see that in a moment as I kind of let this video play out. And these statues were probably one of my most, I want to say, they were one of the major reasons I went. I wanted to see these statues because these statues are all over Europe, and I have big question marks over these statues. and I'm going to start explaining some of that shortly as well. Yara's very real asked me a very interesting question there. And you know me, I'm going to answer it very honestly. So I'm going to put his question as he said, did you experience any racism or weird looks while at the Vatican? I've heard things about the Italians. Yeah, so I'm going to say this in as nice a way as possible, because it's not nice to tar a people with a brush. But I've been fortunate enough to have been to Rome, I've been to Venice, I've been to Florence, I've been to Milan, and I haven't been to a part of Italy where you meet happy Italian people. So I couldn't even call. In fact, to be honest with you, when I went to Florence, I found the Italians there were overtly racist, in terms of made it very clear they didn't like talking to or serving a black person, even when they didn't have a choice. So I didn't really get that in Rome, but what I did get in Rome was an overwhelming sense that Italian people just aren't very happy. I'll be totally honest with you. They seem like a really, really, I just felt like they were really miserable, to be totally frank, just genuinely miserable people. I can't help that. It didn't bother me too much. I didn't have massive amounts of interactions other than getting my food. And when they were serving that, they were perfectly kind. So yeah, sounds like the UK. Actually, I'll be honest with you, more miserable than the UK. Real talk, more miserable than the UK. Really, really miserable bunch. Barely saw a smile for the entire time I was there, and that was nothing to do with me. At least I don't think it had anything to do with me. So yeah, I found that in Italy in general. Yeah, they're just not happy. They're just not happy people. I think there's a historical reason for that, but then that's me going off on one again. So there you go. But yeah, that's that. So racism, not really in Rome. Florence was racist. Rome wasn't racist. Milan wasn't racist, and Venice wasn't racist. So yeah, I haven't seen. I know Italians in general. Let's be real. I'm not making excuses for them. We all know what happens in the football games. Italians can probably be the most horrible racist people in Europe, but I think you can avoid a lot of that when you're a tourist. So I don't know. Yeah, let's move on. So these are pics now, so I'm gonna will it allow me to full screen this? Yes. Okay, so these are pics now that we're looking at. Let me just one moment. Brilliant. And I was very interested in, let me ask a question actually to you guys. When you see these statues, and I'm just going to just kind of scroll through a couple of images, because these, can you see the way they're on top of the buildings? Now imagine that 360 degrees all around. Okay, I tried to capture that, and I'm going to just kind of like, oh, here you go. Watch this video, because I actually do a full 360 spin, I believe, in this video. Yeah. So watch this video, and I'm going to do a full 360 spin, and I want everyone to just kind of take this in. Jumpy video. It's my PC struggling. There you go. That's a bit smoother. Is everyone having a look? Yeah. So we're going around. Okay, I know it's a little bit jumpy. Well, a lot a bit jumpy. There's a obelisk right in the center. I'm not sure what this obelisk is called. I'm going to pause it really quickly, because what's peculiar about this obelisk that's right in the center of St. Peter's Square is, in fact, one of you guys tell me, and then I'm going to ask the question that I was going to ask you at the end. Someone tell me, from what you can see, what's strange about this obelisk. Can anyone spot it? Paused it on the screen, probably in a perfect time. Can anyone see what's strange about this? Okay, and about the Greeks of the statues in the Colosseum, but it's nothing compared to these statues of them. It has a cross on top. Yes, it's been adorned. That's one thing. Good. So Wildflowers noted that it has been adorned. They've kind of dressed it up, not at the base and at the top. So it does have a cross on top of it, which I only showed quickly. Small part replaced. Yeah, so you're talking about this section here. Yeah, that's kind of the dressing. I'm not sure if it's been replaced or been placed on top. No writing. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Iced tea. What's peculiar about this obelisk is there's no writing on it. There's normally hieroglyphs on these obelisks. Okay, and actually, we're going to come on to an obelisk at the very end because I'm going to reveal something to you that I learned about obelisks in general, or at least was confirmed to me after this trip to the Vatican, because I saw 2 more obelisks whilst I was in Rome. Rome has about 6, by the way, and I realized something that's familiar or similar about all of the obelisks I've seen, that they haven't given people this information. So hopefully that will be a little bit of an interesting one to you. But yes, what I found peculiar about this one in particular was that it has no medinetto and it has no writing on it. And from what I could say, all of them do. The ones from Axum, you're very right, Zayhoven. There are ones from Axum, but they have a different shape. They have a more rectangular shape than the Kemetic ones. Kemetic ones are kind of like perfect squares right to the top, and then they have a pyramid right at the top. Whereas the Axumite ones are more, they're more kind of rectangular shaped. But yeah, we'll come on to that. So I'm going to just quickly let this video play out, and then I'm going to ask you guys another question, actually. So I'm going to let this video play out. So I'm still spinning about 180 degrees at this point. That's a view of the rest. So down there, that's a view of the rest. This is all Vatican City when you walk down this kind of pathway, and Vatican City also goes to the left as well. So I'm about 180 degrees now, and I'm going to just continue my rotation here so you can see, whoops, all of the all the way around. And this was, I have to say something as well. This was quite an awe-inspiring sight. I'm not going to lie. My breath this was probably the most like, wow, throughout the entire trip that I was there. This was the point I was like, this is a big deal. You know, imagine these are massive statues and you have 140 of them and they're just adorning this square. So there you go. That was with 360 view. Now, here's my question to you guys. Okay. The statues that you saw, remember, I've given you a building date of St. Peter's Square of the early 17th century. Now, Yar has already asked, kind of gone into where I was gone into what I was going to say. Given that construction date of 17th century and what you saw from the look of those statues, can anyone tell me what, if there's a disconnect or if there's a question mark? Because this is the thing that struck me the most. Did anyone see anything that should raise question marks about I guess the people that built this square and the people that are on top of the buildings? Anything picked up there? Just wanted to kind of get your feedback. And whilst you're figuring out what kind of answer you're going to give me, I'm just gonna, let me just scroll to like here or here and just get some of your feedback. Okay, so let's have a read through. Something about those statues seems 100% off. Are we sure they were made when they tell us they were made? Is that bell still active? I'm not sure. I think it is. I swear I remember hearing a bell ringing. I'm pretty sure they were very suspicious of you trying to hide any and everything with the fleur de lis on it, as if we can't just look at Mansa Musa, the black version, and the new white one. Yes, that's. So are you going on? Oh, so okay, the fleur de lis. Yes, you've just rung a bell from. That's the kind of decoration, or what's the word? The sign that was worn by the Bourbon royals, wasn't it? So that's interesting. Cloves are Greek. Okay, wildflower. Wildflower is reading my mind here. They believe that the obelisk conveys power to the city which it stands. And someone else mentioned earlier that the obelisk is a phallic symbol. So, yes, we know both of those things. Those are both very, very insightful. Not consistent styles, yes. Ancient spirituality predates Israelites by thousands of years. Wildflower says African looking. I'm going to say yes again. Materials seem different as well. Imitating another culture. There we go. I mean, guys, you guys have given me a lot of answers here. A lot of answers, all of which are kind of ringing the bell of the point I was making. The point is that, at least to me, and I'm happy to be corrected here, but 17th century to me suggests a certain type or a certain style of European. When I think 17th century, I think Visigoth. Yeah, that was the major domineering person. Yeah, of the 17th century. Those that have been your Visigoths. Okay, Visigothic soldiers. Okay, wore a certain style of armor. Okay, the chainmail was very, very popular. Um, Visigothic kings looked a certain way. Visigothic nobles looked a certain way. And yet, what you have here, and I do understand this is the Vatican, but what you have here seems to be a celebration of Roman culture. And when I say Roman culture, I mean, this is a culture and this is a dress that seems to me to be very foreign to the culture that owned it. Now, HHG Core has said Renaissance. And yes, I think Renaissance is one of the things that seems to be used as the explanation slash excuse for the, what do I want to say, for the uplifting of this culture, to say, okay, you know, they aspired, but why would they aspire towards a culture that they've overthrown, that they've defeated, that they've beaten? Because from all of our understanding, it was the Vandals and the Goths who were successful in overthrowing the Romans. At least that's what we're taught. Okay, and the Romans were successful in overthrowing the Greeks. So why would there be this romanticism towards this Roman culture? And when I say Roman culture, one of the things that you're going to see, or at least I'm going to share, that I'm very skeptical about, is actually how Roman is this culture? That is the question I have, because I'm just going to just scroll through. This is, and we're going to look at kind of your typical uplifted statue, you know, where they worship the attire, where they worship the culture. This is a, you know, what a Roman emperor or a high Roman noble dress like. I want to get a nice clear picture and zoom in. This is kind of your typical image you'll get. Look at the robes, look at the way they're draped, look at the way they're hung about the person. Okay, I want you to have a look at these. Look at this woman. Okay, look at the robes, look at the way the robes are draped about these people. I'm going to keep going. Now I'm going to ask you another question as I kind of freeze on this image over here. Can you tell me, are there any current cultures globally that still adhere to such dress codes? That's my question to you guys. Where do you see people still dressing like this? Yeah. So some of you are giving me some of the things that you'll note. So I think a lot of people, this might go over their head, but this is one of the things that I firmly have always noticed. So I'm going to share. And the chat's going crazy at the moment. So let's have a look. I'm just going to pull this window onto the screen, and I want to give a bit of a image dump here. Okay. And this is not me being selective. Okay. This is me just searching for different things. So a lot of people have said Ghana, Ashanti. I just did a very normal search, and I've just put in traditional Akan robes. And I want you to have a look at the dress. Okay. I want you to have a look at the dress. Don't look at anything else other than the way the dress code is being presented to you here. Here's a really good one. Okay. And I mean, I'm not being selective here. This, you just see me literally Google search that, and you can see it's almost every image. Have a look at the way the robe is draped. Okay. Now, to be very clear, these aren't people. This is traditional dress in this part of the world. Okay, for certain cultures, not every single one, but for certain cultures and for certain ethnicities, this is very traditional dress in this part of the world. And this isn't something that was inherited. This is something that has evolved. This is something, like someone has just said, is practical for the climate. Okay, this is something that is practical for the way that the people live, and this is something that is connected to ancestral beliefs. Okay, this is something or way or style of dressing that has been there for time immemorial. Here's some Ashanti dressing similar. Have a look at the way this one has been ruffled and layered. And let me just quickly go back to what we saw there. Okay, can you see the way this has been ruffled and layered in a very similar way to almost exactly to what we see there? Let's keep going because I just want to show a couple more. And I'm going to flip over here to say traditional. These are traditional Yoruba robes. And this is more for the women's side. Okay. Because there's something very, if you have a look at the neckline of the female, one second, not that one particular. Let me just find one. But the open neckline, here we go, of the female Yoruba attire. Now, obviously, it's been very stylized in the last, few hundred years, definitely in the last century, it's updated significantly. But there is something very old school about that Yoruba woman's neckline. And if you have a look once again, it's just something that is, I'll show you some better images, you see in the dress of the women. And you're going to see that these similarities aren't superficial. They are literally depictions of a dress code that we've never stopped adhering to. So the question is, even this one goes as far as having the head wrap as well, but we won't go into that so far, because that could be, I would say that could be a kind of a conglomeration of Northwest African attire. So if you have a look over here, you have the African dress and you have what looks like some kind of a head wrap that you'll see in Africa. And I'm getting somewhere with this, but the point is that if you have a look at all of these statues, the only place that you can find a contemporary reflection of robes where people still dress like this to this day, interestingly, is in Africa. So why is it that the very culture that seems to be worshipped, aspired to, and we've already established was not their own, this is a part of Renaissance romanticism of an outside culture that they did not practice, why is it that they seem to reflect a dress that is currently adhered to on the African continent? It's very interesting. Let me carry on because I was only getting started there. Traditional Benin attire. This is really interesting because the Benin chiefs, I just want to show you what the Benin chiefs dress like. They have a very, here it is. the Benin chiefs will wrap the robe, or will ruffle the robe around the waist. They'll fold it over. I'm sure there's a better image of the Benin chiefs. Let me just quickly see if I can find that one, because it's a really good one. I want to show you it. Bear with me. Here it is. So I just wanted to show you, these are the Benin chiefs. And yeah, so they will ruffle it around the waist. Now I want you to pierce that one in your mind, okay? Have a look at the way it's ruffled around the waist, okay? And the more senior chiefs will follow that up with kind of like one draped over the shoulder. This is like archetypal standard Roman attire. The Roman toga. I've always said the Roman toga is simply African dress. Everything about the Roman toga is African dress. You know, it was really funny actually. So whilst I'm on that note, so I don't know who's seen Gladiator 2 with Denzel Washington, but if you see Gladiator 2 and Denzel's character, it's really funny because the way his character is dressed, he's Macrinus, I think, the Roman Emperor Macrinus, but the way he's dressed, because he's black, when he dresses like they always dress the Roman emperors, it should spark a little bit of a memory. I won't do spoilers then if you haven't seen it, but I will just show you a couple pics of him. So when you actually see him dressed, there's one particular outfit he wears. It's like he just looks like any African guy, you know, but he's dressed in this very typical Mediterranean, or what modern people believe is a Mediterranean / Hellenic way of dressing, which really is just an African way of dressing. So this is just an illustration, but I want you to have a look at that. You know, if you'd heard that this is, you know, Mansa Musa or some African emperor, it wouldn't have, you know, here's the one I want to show you. So have a look at this one. Okay. I mean, this is as close to a Yoruba outfit as I've ever seen. And, you know, he wears this in the film and it makes sense. This shouldn't look wrong to you. It should look correct, because we're talking about a contiguous culture stretching from Africa all the way up into Southern Europe. And it's represented in the dress. And yet this dress is not spoken about. This culture is not spoken about. And it's a cultural tie. You can't just, well, you can if you want to, but in my view, how can you just ignore a cultural link like that when, you know, men in Africa are currently dressing like that, and that's what a lot of your statues look like? So anyway, that was a bit of a segue. Let's look through some more of these images, okay, and see if any of them continue to kind of have that same impact. So this is one of the reasons why I was kind of awestruck a little bit when I was in it, because I was looking around and my head was just saying to me, where is the 17th century Visigothic culture? Where is that? You know, Ace said Denzel was clean the whole movie. He was. His apart from some of the questionable behaviors of his character, when it came to the dress, it was on point. But I'm not going to give any of the women in the chat any excuse for Denzel worship. We're not doing that right now, okay? Because I know how black women get with Denzel. Yeah. And yeah, I know that was a very generalizing comment, but I don't care. It's true. Yeah, they just need an excuse. All they need is an open door, and then they're gone. You know. So, have a look at these now. You know, have a look at, you know, the disconnect obviously comes when one looks at the faces, because you're thinking, well, those aren't African faces, and I totally agree. Those aren't African faces, but now that you've seen how that dress looks in actual, you know, in real life, in current life, to me it changes a little bit the way that you see, they've started already. To me it changes the way you view, or at least for me it did, some of the statues. And once again, just looking for that visible. This is what I was talking about earlier. Oh, where did it go? Where did it go? I want to show you that again. Here it is. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Remember what I just showed you about the Benin Chiefs. So have a look at this guy here. Yeah, and I'm just going to quickly put that picture of the Benin Chiefs back on the screen again. Yeah, so have a look there. Can you see that? I'm going to give this one its own tab. Sorry, give me one split second. Open image in new tab. There we go. So there. Have a look at this one. Yeah, these guys here, and then have a look back at this image here. Okay, because to me, I see the same thing there. I see almost identically the same thing. Once again, it's just a continuation, or at least there's definitely a cultural borrowing going on. Now, is this going on in one way or is it going on in another? I'm not sure. Okay, we could come on to that. I'm not going to leave too many conclusions, but I will definitely say there's a cultural, definitely a dress continuity that's taken place. And once again, it just seems to be understated. Now, the women's clothing, I've seen some good reflection of that in a lot of East African communities as well. The way the women dress, as well as I was trying to show you some examples. By the way, if you can think of other cultures that reflect this style of dress, please put it in the chat, because it would be nice to get a little bit of an image dump going on to see where some of these ideas either originated or diffused to. I'm not going to claim one or the other at this early stage. I'm just going to say that there's definitely a link. Okay. So I'm just scrolling through some of the images here. Once again, I'm just going to zoom in so we can just have a look at some of these. Now, the long sleeved versions, although some of them are ruffled at the end, a lot of them do remind me of some of the Yoruba dress that you can see. And some people actually did mention there is a Buddhist overlap as well, or maybe like an Asian overlap on some of them. And that's quite interesting. And I remember people would have noted that the papal caps seem to have their origin somewhere in Kemet as well. They are the closest contemporary thing to the upright crowns of Upper Kemet or Upper Egypt that you used to see historically. And it's interesting because you have the judges' hats in the UK, which look like the Nimis as well. So you've got these, that could be a coincidence. But I think given how much was borrowed from Kemet, it's probably not a coincidence that there's some kind of borrowing going on there with the papal caps and the crowns, or at least particularly the Hijet crown of Kemet. Seems to be some kind of continuity there as well. And someone just said that the Philistines would wear those hats for their fish god Dagon. That's really interesting. That's probably worth a bit of research, because that could provide the link there. But yeah, here's a full view of the obelisk. And this one is confirmed to have what is alleged to have come from Egypt as well. But I just found it interesting that this one doesn't have any medunetta on it. This is probably the first one I've come across that's completely plain from bottom to top. Not borrowed, stolen, certainly. And they've adorned it as well, which is interesting. But this is not the only one they've adorned. They've actually adorned several of them. When I saw the one in Paris, in outside next to the Eiffel Tower, there's one next to the Eiffel Tower in Paris, and that one is intact in that they haven't dressed it or done anything with it. So The one in Washington DC, yeah, is very real. I think is called Cleopatra. There's a few of them called Cleopatra's Needle, and that's a misnomer, by the way. But I think it's got Medunetta on it. I could be wrong, but if you can find the plain one, let me know. But I think it has got Medunetta on it, because that's going to bring me on to one of my points that I'm going to make later. So stick around. There will be a point made about obelisks later that I think is very interesting. But there you go again. I want you to have a look again at the way this guy is dressed. Okay, top half fully exposed, one shoulder covered. Okay, and then if we just quickly have a pop back and have a look at the ACAN, or at least some of the dress codes. Okay, very, very typical. Oops, sorry, wrong one. This is the one I wanted. Very, very typical of the dress that you see in Ghana here. I mean, there's almost too many examples. There's also another style that I want to show you. I'm hoping I can find it actually, because I caught a video of it, and I think they roll it up, and the way that they roll it, they kind of roll the robe just below their chest, and they roll it very, very tightly. And these are the people that accompany the, I'm trying to see if I can find it, because there's a specific way that they roll it, which I saw had exact representation. And when I say exact, I mean exact representation. And I was like, well, that's the same thing, isn't it? Surely. And I want to try and find it, because it might not be ACAN actually. It might be something else. Maybe I need to type in Ashanti. Which appears to be the same thing, so I clearly don't know what I'm talking about here. I wish I could find it. I'm trying to find a very specific thing at the moment. I could probably find it in the video on my Instagram, but I don't want to go around the houses, because I'm sure there's something I could type in. That's a bit annoying. Okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So let's move on. Okay, so I'm going to keep scrolling now through some of these images that I just took, once again, just for your interest. Now, these ones I think are more layered, not only more practical. This is, I guess, more of what I'd expect to see for a Visigothic representation. So this is probably more typical of what I'd expect from the region. So when I see these images, this was much more, okay, well, this makes sense, 17th century. Okay, this makes total sense. It was only when I came across some of the other ones, like I've just shown you, which were clearly not, not only not practical, but not practiced within Visigothic culture, that I have my question marks about why they have so much representation. And you've got to see that this just gets a lot worse once you, well, not worse, but a lot more intense once you get inside the actual Vatican Museum. You've got to see that the entire museum is filled with this Hellenic dress code, which perhaps we need to start renaming or start calling it, Afro-Hellenic. That would annoy them, wouldn't it? But we need to call it an Afro-Hellenic dress code, because that essentially is what it was. It's something that is practiced, and I'd assume was practiced in Africa for a long time, as well as Europe. And it certainly isn't unique. The Roman toga, I've always said we need to really not appropriate, we really need to rename that. Actually, here's a question for the community. What is the name for what has become, or what has been called, the Roman toga? What do we call it? What did the Ashanti call it? What do any other African cultures call it when you have it wrapped around your body and thrown over the shoulder like that? Because it would be good if we started calling it by its traditional name. It would at least force the conversation to be had about where some of these cultural ties come from. So here's a picture that I had to, a statue that I had to capture. I got video of it, and I think I got it from different angles, because once again, just the way everything, the way the robe's been worn, the multiple folds, it gave me very, very close chills. And also, even phenotypically, this guy looks like he could be, you know, a modern North African. He could be, you know, one of those, you know, semi-Moorish types that you would have found in and around the region at the time. This robe as well, I've seen this robe with the central tie. I'm trying to remember which culture it was that has that. There's all of the, when I say I've seen them, I'm talking about contemporary. I've seen this robe with the central tie, and I'm trying to remember which culture it is that had that. If anyone can remember, feel free to drop a link in there. But that was why I took this picture. But here's a better image of the one I just showed you before. You can see the way the robe is worn. I was like, yeah, I've seen that. That's kind of like, that's uncle dress every day of the week, you know. I thought that was quite interesting. Now, also what I found very interesting is when you're in St. Peter's Square, they had these plaques, these, I'd assume copper plaques. And when I saw them, it did give me a feel, because when you hear about the Benin bronzes, they speak about the fact that these were hung in the palace and in the courtyard of the Oba of Benin. And by the way, the courtyard of the Oba of Benin was massive. They said the palace of the Oba had more material than the Great Pyramid of Giza. This is what was written about the palace of the Oba. It was absolutely huge, and the courtyard was absolutely massive. So we don't know what it looks like because it was deconstructed before anyone got an opportunity to capture it, but we just have writings describing it. But what I found interesting is they have these plaques, and I've taken a close-up of one, but then I'm going to just zoom out and show you how the plaques are hung. So you can see you got one there, you got one there, you got one there, and they're all the way up and down this wall. Okay, I think that's the only image I've got. Now, the reason I captured that is because I thought, I wonder if this is a similar layout to what you had. Because when it comes to the Benin bronzes, by the way, if you don't know, there's about, I think there's about 900 to 1,000 Benin bronzes that were taken from Benin, stolen, whatever you want to call it, from Benin. They have about 100 in display in the British Museum, and then the rest are just hidden and or in private collections and or sold. Yeah. So of the 1,000, we have like 10% that are shown in the British Museum. Now, the reason I mention that is they say they were hung about the palace and the courtyard of the Oba, and I wonder if it was a similar kind of layout where you had these plaques, which we know the Benin bronze plaques tell a story, and I wonder if they had a similar thing where they were hung in these kind of like phased displays around the very large courtyard. I wonder if once again this is a representation of the kind of thing that you would have encountered before the Palace of the Oba was deconstructed, where the plaques, which were eventually taken down, were hung in a similar fashion. Because I just found it interesting. Oh, this is a similar idea here. We've got these copper or bronze plaques, or I think this was a copper, these copper plaques that are spaced out, and each one is telling a different story about, I don't know, the crucifixion or something like that. But it just all looked, once again, it's just themes that come up through history that I thought this would have been how it would have been done in Benin. I'd imagine something very similar to this. So I just thought it was quite interesting. So that's why I captured that image. Just one of those things that caught my eye. And there's the back view. Once again, I'm just capturing these from all sides. This is that same statue that I showed you at the start. So this is the third image I'm showing you now. And I'm capturing it from all sides so you can see how similar it is to the way modern Africans dress in their Asoriro. I'm sure is that the Yoruba one? I'm not sure. Obatala, I'll be told. Um, I don't know. I don't know what I'm reading here, but yeah, if that's the name of what we should be calling it, this is just something to bear in mind. Okay, this is not a dead culture. This is not a dead practice. This is something that is still being practiced on the African continent. And why is the link never being made? Yes, it's Yoruba. Someone just said, yes, it's me, Yoruba. I don't speak a lick of Yoruba, by the way. Oddly enough, I do understand it sometimes when it's spoken, like mostly, mildly. I get the gist. If someone's cussing me, I kind of know. But my Yoruba's hopeless. And that's my mom's fault. So, there you go. So here's another kind of encircling video. Not sure what I saw here. I think I just wanted to get some close-ups of these statues that I only had dark images of earlier. Let's move on. So I want to get to this is a pretty powerful image. Once again, just the layering of the clothing. Just caught my interest. I want to share other observations, but I'm being very sparing on my views on this one because I don't want to force people to think the way I think. Yeah, Yars very well said. You don't even need to know when it comes to Yoruba. You don't even need to know what they're saying. You can tell by the tone. And when they keep kissing their teeth and eyeing you, you know when they're cussing you. That's so true. Some people think African attire is primitive, but I think Yar kept them in this mode of dress on purpose to help with the historical awakening. So the comparison would trigger our thoughts and expose. I'm guessing, yeah. I mean, it could be. It could be that. I think it's that, and also it's practical, and also it looks dope. Let's be real. Yeah, the traditional African way of dressing. I'm telling you, you feel like when you rock a piece of African attire that suits your being, I'm telling you, you feel like a king. There's nothing quite like it. The idea of getting married in a suit, in Africa is like, ugh. Why would I wear that? Why would I wear a suit? That's crazy. When I could wear this, proper. This is the. I mean, as you can see here, this is the stuff that emperors wore. That they wear in Africa. There's no comparing, in my opinion. There's no comparison. Have a look at these statues. I mean, these statues are exquisite, by the way. To see so many of them in succession is really something to behold whilst I was there. Now, this one caught my eye because this is when it started hitting really real. Okay. Have a look at this image. Now, if you guys aren't seeing the similarity to some of the images that I showed you earlier, okay, I don't know what I can do with that. Okay, if you're not seeing the similarity to some of the images that I showed you earlier, I don't know what to do with you. I'm just trying to show you guys that similarity. In fact, there's a really powerful image. I wish I could find it. In fact, I'm going to find it right now. I'm going to find a really powerful image for you guys. Benin, I'm going if I find an image for you guys. Just bear with me 1 second. After. And also, I do want you to bear in mind that some of the traditions and the levels of clothing that were adorned by Africans pre-colonialism have been dropped. So you have to bear that in mind as well, where some of the styles and the methods of and the ways of dressing have been dropped. So this is one of the images that I wanted to show you. So these are some of the things that have been lost. So I'm going to open this in a new tab. I'm going to put it back on the screen. I know you can't see what I'm doing. I'm getting something to show you. I'm going to pull this back on the screen. Okay. All right. So this image here. Oh, let me zoom out. Okay. I want you to have a look at this image over here. Okay. Have a look. Remember, some of these have been lost to time, guys. Okay. So some of these things that would have been historically linked to the way people dressed historically aren't found anymore, but can be found historically. So this image here, just to be clear, this is Benin Court art. Okay, so this is from Benin Court. In fact, I'm gonna just quickly visit that page because I bet you there's gonna be a whole bunch of images on that page for us to look at. But have a look at I want you to look at everything in this image. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in slightly. Okay, I want you to look at the layered dress. I want you to look at the way the sleeves, okay, the way the sleeves are layered, okay, and I want you to look at the way it kind of crosses. Everything about this I want you to have a look at. All right, and then I want you to once again just have a look at, not this one in particular, so I'm going to go back a few. Just have a look at some of these. Okay. I want to get the right one just to give you a comparison, because there's almost a one-for-one for many of these. Okay, let me skip forward a few. Okay, I'm in the Basilica now, so I'm out of zone. Right, well, anyway, imprint it in your mind because you've seen it, okay? You've seen it. We've probably seen it before today already, even down to the slippers, which I could go into. Everything about the way this person is dressed is contemporary, okay, or has been historically African. Okay, everything about this, okay, is very, very seen as something that we should be really, really, familiar with. And hopefully people can see that now as well, because we know we visit these places often, and it's almost like it's very similar to the situation we see in Kemet, where people look at culture or faces or things that they've seen, but because they see it in limestone, or they see it in granite, or they see it in these materials that we don't really associate with being African, it creates this disconnect, and then we're not able to see that it's exactly what we see on a daily basis. Do you understand what I mean? So it kind of creates this gap between being able to see what you know and relate it to the things that you see every day. Do you know what I mean? So seeing like people have just said there, and I saw okay, or I saw raw, or some kind of Akan or Ashanti dress or anything like that, seeing it in marble throws people off, it throws people off, and people go, "Oh, well, I can't." And then, but if you look, it's the same thing. How would you make that outfit if you had a piece of stone to make out of? You'd make it look exactly like what you see, and it's just interesting. Once again, not making any massive leaps here about who people were, this, that, and the other. People can make those leaps themselves. I'm just saying that there was definitely some kind of a cultural link here, some kind of cultural link here that's at play. So anyway, now we're going to move into the basilica. So this is the church. There wasn't a huge amount that interested me inside the basilica itself. It gets a little bit boring for me personally until I got into the Vatican Museums from here. So I'm going to show you a few images from inside the church, but I'll be honest with you, I was taking these photos. I wasn't that interested. However, if you see something that interests you, as I'm kind of flicking through these pics, or you want to comment on something, obviously feel free to. I'm just skipping through at this point because I'm not massively that intrigued by what I saw in the basilica, because you just saw kind of like, very, very standard kind of things. Can I just say a quick thank you to Macy, who's very generously given a $5 donation. She said, speaking of Benin, the few bronzes I've seen, the pyramids and palace are depicted on the bronzes. Fortunately, they couldn't hide all the evidence. There is a lot on the Benin bronzes. I'd love to do a study on them, actually, because I've also noted that they have a style similar to European coats of arms. So some of them are actually structured like we see modern day coats of arms being structured in terms of shape. The kind of animals that are used as well are the same animals we see on coats of arms. So there's a lot going on with those if you're willing to look under the hood. So that's a really good point about the Benin bronzes there. Something that I think we should do a future video on, actually. So yeah, there you go. And actually, let's listen to Wildflower. Smash the like button, hit the like button up so people can join us, or at least so the stream can get a little bit of traction to it. So once again, I'm just going to say I'm going to just flick through these pictures whilst keeping an eye on the chat. Marcellus Papal. So this is a Pope Marcellus. This is Pope Bonifacius. Okay, very typical nativity scene. We all know about the Madonna. Now, obviously, this is a more recent one. It's interesting here. You've got the popes as tiny, and this is quite. I never actually caught this when I took this image. Are these kids, or is this a depiction of the popes as tiny as a show of the fact that these three forms here are maybe deities? The reason I say that is, once again, if we're going to take ancient Egypt as an example, where you often had the pharaoh displayed sometimes much larger than the general population, or sometimes the deities displayed larger than the general population. Is this an attempt to do the same thing here, or is this just a depiction of children? It's quite interesting to note. Also, just note that weird replaced nose, which is going to be a theme of today as well, that you probably weren't expecting. But yeah, there you go. That's quite interesting. So this is inside so that was kind of like inside the passageways inside leading to the main auditorium. So this is actually inside the main auditorium of the church here, and you do see that the this kind of black and gold theme, which is something, once again, this could be an ode to the Renaissance, where all of the deities once again will be displayed with perfectly black skin and adorned in gold. Or it could have just been a way that they've chosen to use the materials that they have. But this is quite an amazing piece of artwork, if I'm going to be totally honest with you. The amount of gold on display here really was, yeah, quite striking. I want to give a shout out to Berean Scholar, who has made a very generous $20 donation. So great job as always, my brother. Thank you very much, my brother. I do have a live stream on Berean Scholars channel. So if you do want to check that out, guys, please do. Yeah, it was a fantastic collaboration. And yeah, appreciate you being here. So if you guys want to head over to the Berean Scholars channel as well, he does some good stuff over there. Please do. Random women dressed like Romans. They even wear leaf crown like ancient Greeks. Now, thank you for that, Wesker. We'll put that up. I'm gonna find some pics of that as I'm flicking through some of these images. But let's carry on. Now, yeah, you guys can see this is some really serious architecture going on here. I just kind of caught it once again. This is right in the center of St Pieters Basilica. You can see it's pretty amazing stuff to behold, honestly. This stuff all looks really new, though, if I'm going to be totally honest with you. Apart from a couple of statues, it feels like it's had a relatively recent refurbishment, because none of it felt particularly old inside St. Peter's Basilica. Now, I could be wrong about that, but it just felt like it had been recently refurbished to me. But still, nothing to to not be impressed with. It's very impressive architecture. And by the way, trying to pass off new stuff as old is another theme we'll be touching on today as well. There you go again. Well, there you go again with the dress again. This to me is African attire. Okay. This is African attire. Even if you look at the papal dress here, so this Pope here, this with the embroidery down the center, this is typical, very, very typical African attire here. Very typical to me. This scene was something. It's interesting. This crown here is very, yeah. Some of the scenes in this, yeah. This crown here looks very, I don't know, shape-wise. Someone would have to tell me where that comes from, because that looks very culturally. What's going on here as well? Yeah, this is quite an interesting scene. This is the first time I'm looking at this one, to be totally honest with you guys. And what's this here? So this is interesting because I can't see clearly, but that looks like a wolf. Now, I could be wrong. It does look like a wolf to me. Could be a fox, but it looks like a wolf to me. Now, the reason I'm pointing out that's quite interesting, that looks like a wolf, is because in a lot of these structures, and you'll see this in the museums as well, it's very rare that you'll see animals that are European. Like wolves and foxes. Petrina just said it's a fox. Yeah, I'm fine with that being a wolf or a fox. This is kind of what I expect to see. And this is going back to the discussion that we were having earlier. If we're going to talk about structures and statues that are European, I'm expecting to see foxes. I'm expecting to see wolves. I'm expecting to see maybe bears. Okay. And I'm expecting to see Visigothic dress. But then you're looking at a lot of these famous great structures and you see African clothes and you see lions and you see leopards. Wildflower said, yeah, squirrels, expect to see squirrels. But you see all of this African fauna and African dress. Once again, raising the question mark as to why. Why are these people surrounded by lions? Why are these people surrounded by leopards? Why are these people dressed like modern day Africans? It's just another thing that just raises the question. This to me is what I expect to see. This is very normal. This is what I expect, you know, Renaissance Europe to be filled with. Okay. But if it's filled with leopards and lions, then it's going to just create question marks, isn't it? You know, as to why, why was there this? There's clearly either a borrowing of the culture or a wanting to a veneration of the culture, and that wouldn't be, if you think of if that was the case, that they really, looked up to African culture, that wouldn't be strange, because that's essentially what the Greeks said. Okay, the Greeks never denied it, and to less extent, even the Romans never denied it. These cultures were quite open in their glorification of the Ethiopians and their closeness with the gods, etc., etc. So it makes sense that they have a lot of Ethiopian. When I say Ethiopian, I mean African, obviously, iconography around. That makes perfect sense, but it doesn't make sense in the context of the story that we've been told, where Africa is this denigrated place, but yet, as you can see, it seems to be a place that you're adhering to their dress, you're adhering to their culture, you're adhering to their fauna, and you're denying your own, which doesn't make any sense to me. So that's just the question mark I have there. Surfactant, thank you very much for your $5 donation. He said, I watched a doc that pointed out with original sources that pre-iconoclastic era, black rulership and divinity was all over Europe. Well, you're in the right place here, Surfactant, because I certainly wouldn't say, that is, I wouldn't say that's far-fetched at all. I think that's very well supported. But it's interesting, because what I think it begins to start to draw out is you have these claims, but then you also have the more hard to deny cultural links. And that's, I guess, where a lot of this discussion is going to center around, is, are we able to identify things that are culturally definitely African, and then open up the conversation as to why there's so much African, like I said, iconography representation in what was revered? Because we're told, when you think about what we're told that this is all worship of Roman culture, or without any explanation why. Just we worship, they worshipped the Romans, Renaissance, this, that, and the other. But if you put it in its timeline, this is post Moorish conquest, post, if we're going by the modern timeline, by the way, which I don't actually fully believe, but anyway, this is post Moorish conquest, post Europe under African rule, and Europe just coming out of that. That's where we're coming from. We're coming from a time in history where Europe had been ruled by Africa, by their own version of history, for at least 800 years. That's where we're coming out of. Okay, we're coming out of a period of time where Africa had ruled Europe for 800 years. So doesn't it make logical sense, even by their own version of history, that they wouldn't just revert to worshipping Rome, which was the civilization that ruled before the 800 years of African rule? Wouldn't it make more logical sense that they still carry over some of those African traditions that perhaps had permeated into the European continent? That's I think that's a more logical thing to discuss, but it's never discussed, because the African has to always be denigrated in European or in modern European history. Once again, that attire jumps out at me. Doesn't look any way, shape, or form European. This looks wholly African to me. Wholly African, the way this is draped. There's a very good representation of that guy sitting down that I showed you just a moment ago. Okay. This is really interesting because these are well, anyway, I'm not going to pretend I know what's going on this structure here, but it's very interesting. Now, I'm going to flick through because I do want to get to the museum at this stage. Okay. Just got to flick through these pictures relatively quickly because I want to show you some things in the museum that did actually blow my mind whilst I was there. And I'm mindful of the time that we're going for over an hour now. Go back that one actually, see if there was anything. I mean, this is a very interesting image to me. Don't know why this one really caught my attention. Probably because it just didn't look right. I think that's why it caught my attention. Something about this image looked, I don't know. Once again, I don't know. Let's carry on. There's those hats again, these tall crowns. It's interesting. I want to know where this says Saint Damascus, Saint Damascus, maybe Saint Paul. Where this tall crown? Where does this come from? What's the story behind this tall crown? Because once again, I associate this kind of crown shape once again with Africa. But another interesting thing, actually, I was having this discussion just recently. I can't remember who it was with. I think it was someone on a Discord server, but I was having a discussion about the fact that the whole concept of a crown is a papal tiara, Yar just said. But the whole concept of a crown is an African thing. Africans invented crown. And actually, if you look at the oldest words for crown, they always correspond with hair. So the idea of crown and hair was always synonymous on the African continent. If you look, you don't have to go back. You have to go back quite not too far in European history, where you get to a point, I think it's about 600 years before present, where the rulers don't wear crowns. Okay. Crowns is a new concept, whereas crowns have been worn on the African continent for millennia. Okay. We know that obviously that the crowns and the hair of the African have always formed somewhat of a partnership. It's always going to be some kind of an extension of the hairstyle, whether it's really practical, like we saw amongst the Tutsi, who had the kind of like Capresh styles, or the Benin, who used to bead adornments on their natural hair, or it was something that was placed on top of the hair whilst it was shaped, maybe perhaps like the hijab, etc. But if you have a look historically, the whole concept of a crown is a very African concept. Okay, something that was very African. Was during a time when Africans were wearing crowns, European rulers were wearing wreaths. Okay, that's as close as they got to a crown. They'd wear a wreath on their head. It was actually a Renaissance, a post-Renaissance thing. Well, actually, I guess during the Crusades, it was a thing as well, where European rulers started to wear crowns. But if you go before then, you just have, if you're talking about anywhere from prior to the 13th century, 12th, 13th century, Europeans would just wear, simple hats. As a ruler, it might be the color of your hat that distinguishes you, or it might be the style of your armor that distinguishes you as the king, or some kind of a fancy hairstyle. But it certainly wasn't this wearing of a crown, an overt crown. This is a very much a post-European expansion, borrowing from Africa. So when you see things like the crown jewels and stuff like that, this was, a relatively new thing for European rulers that didn't go past, maybe, like I said, around 600 to 700 years, when they started to adorn them, which is quite interesting. Macy said that's why they shaved the slaves' heads. That's interesting. That's interesting, because I never considered that. I do know that, particularly in Kemet, actually, and I was having this discussion the other day with someone. I was on someone's channel, and they had done a really fantastic generation of, it was like an AI generation of an ancient Egyptian city, where they had all of the men and the women walking through, and it was all AI generated. It was really good. It really kind of, it was very atmospheric, really drew you in to what it would have maybe felt like to walk through an Egyptian city. But the only thing I noted, and I did point out to the creator, was that the men all had their hair covered. They had head wraps on. So I pointed out to him and said, listen, this is really good generation, but lose the head wraps. Ancient Egyptians weren't Bedouins, they weren't, modern Arabs. They were African. Okay. I haven't seen an ancient Egyptian stele where the men have their hair covered. I've seen the women with their hair covered occasionally, very occasionally, but the men didn't cover their hair historically in ancient Egypt. And just touching to Macy's point, the hair tended to get longer depending on your level of nobility in ancient Egypt. So she's quite correct in that regard. The really short hairstyles, they obviously they've told us that all ancient Egyptian men shaved their hair and wore wigs, which is baloney. Because we have stele of people getting their hair styled and plaited and twisted while their hair is on their head. We have numerous steles showing us that. But you do see a correspondence with the length of the hair. So you find that the kind of like the commoners tended to all have short hair, okay, cropped hair. Then maybe when you get up to the kind of like the soldier class, you had this kind of like short afros or bobbed hair. Then you get up to the noble class, the men could wear quite relatively long shoulder length hair. But then when it comes to the actual ruling class, you saw men with full length dreads, such as, Josa Amenemhat III. And I actually believe the Nemes crown required, full length dreads underneath it. It was one of the things that was worn. So you had this kind of lengthening of the hair in ancient Egypt, depending on your social class. This is amongst the men rather than the women, by the way. So it was very, very common for the, I don't want to say lower tier of society, to have the shortest hair. And then as you worked your way up towards the nobility and higher, their hair got longer and longer. And I don't know if this was codified in any actual rules, if it was punishable or anything like that, but it just seemed to be the observation. So there might be a lot of truth in what you've just said there, Macy, although I do need to look into it further. That's a very interesting observation. Okay. So that for organizations. I'm going to move on from there. Do, 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 do. And it's interesting, just touching on Macy's point again, that we lost a lot of Africans lost their connection to ethnotrichology. In fact, I would say most, if not all, African nations lost their connection to the crown. I guess ethnotrichology is the best word I can use. That connection to understanding the role that hairstyles played in society for all of our people, because it's very, across most African societies, hair played a massively important role, from the Mangbitu in the Congo to, like I already mentioned, the Rwandan society, Bugandan society, South African society. We saw so many different societies where hair played an important role. I even spoke about the fact that that short twist that you see on throughout Black Europeans used to wear it. Ancient Egyptians used to wear it. Benin people used to wear it. Nobles in Benin used to wear it. It was like an almost universal African hairstyle that just came to a very abrupt end. It seems like all of a sudden, it just came to a really abrupt end, from Black societies all over the globe having this short twisted hair that was so significant to no one practicing that hairstyle anywhere. It was quite crazy, you know. Yeah, that's just something very, very interesting to note. So it must have been really, it was either very vilified, or they managed to target the right people who had the knowledge about what the significance of those hairstyles were to our societies. Here's an image of the ceiling. Okay, I think I'm in the museum at this point now, so this is where it will get interesting again. But have a look at this. This is a real I mean, when you talk about attention to detail, this building is immense. It's just, yeah, you're almost there and you're almost not believing that a place like, or a building like this exists. The Louvre was very similar to this in terms of how awe-inspiring it was. When you go inside it, you're like, what is going on? This building is insane. So yeah, if you want to see some crazy architecture, please do visit. Now, they have these mosaics, and I wasn't that impressed with these. These felt really new. So I'm just going to show you a quick video as I walked around taking these images of the mosaic, okay, on the walls. And this kind of went all the way around. It was like a 360 around the basilica. They didn't feel old or authentic, so I wasn't really taken by these. These felt like they'd been built in the last maybe 200 to 300 years. It just weren't that impressive to me personally. I didn't feel that antiquity to them, so it's quite easy for me to not be that impressed with those. Here's have a look. This is the main dome, and I'm guessing that's saints and angels around it. I don't know. Either which way, it's an impressive bit of architecture to behold. It is an impressive bit of architecture to behold. It's funny. Renaissance woman just said, "Didn't you know the Vikings created locks and twists?" And this is hilarious. You know what I find really hilarious about this whole thing? Yeah, this desperation from this desperation that you see from modern Europeans who are very aware, and this is not obviously all of them. These are just the deluded ones. Most of them actually have got the common sense not to make such stupid arguments, but their desperation to be included in a historical narrative that's increasingly becoming very clear and very exclusive of them beyond a certain date, and then them making a desperate argument. Oh well, Vikings wore plaits first of all. It's like you sigh because it's kind of like you could get about 2 or 3 plaits out of your head if you're lucky. All right, you can never turn around and claim, someone with a head full of plaits or dreads is ever a European, because your hair texture just doesn't support it. It doesn't even stay in without, the use of, some kind of adhesive or some kind of a, locking bands and mechanisms and stuff like that. It doesn't work. You know the difference. It's stupid. You could, like, for instance, you cannot create a hairstyle like you see with the scribes, okay, with European hair. It's just an impossibility, because you don't have enough of it at the right texture to get a full head of hair out of it. Only Africans can do that. So it's like this whole new desperation of the fact that, and I'm not even going to talk about the race of the Vikings. That's neither here nor there. Let's just say that the Vikings were your modern Europeans. It proves absolutely nothing. Okay, it doesn't mean they invented it, just because they came much later, by the way, than when we see. That's another thing. They'll say, oh yeah, the Vikings were. It's like, just because you found an old European society, Vikings aren't that old. Okay, they're not as old as ancient Egypt, all right? And the ancient Egyptians wore them, yeah, before then. So it's like, you don't have any support. This is stupid. It's a stupid argument. But it's this desperate effort to write themselves into antiquity. It's just, I don't know. What do you do with people like that? This is a view from the very, very top. And I'm not going to tell you what kind of ordeal I had to go through to get this image. In fact, it was almost like I got tricked into this, because when you're in St. Peter's Basilica, there's like a passageway, but it's like one way. So once you're in there, you're committed, because there's loads of people behind you and only one person can fit. And it's a one-way thing. So you start going up these stairs. You think, okay, cool. We don't know where it's leading, by the way. You start going up these stairs, and then they just keep going, and they keep going. And then everyone who's walking up these stairs, that up these one-way passage, looks at each other like, we were looking at each other like we've all been fooled here, because no one wants to deal with it. It's like, it gets to a point where I was like halfway through, and it's like, I don't actually care what is at the top of this flight of stairs at this point. I feel, and it's getting narrower and narrower. And imagine you're walking, but you're having to turn the top half of your body to a 45-degree angle, because the ceiling's curved, and everyone's like, what have we got ourselves into? But no one can turn around. We can't turn around. It's a one-way passage, and you're here. So it's like that all the way to the top. And then when you get to the top, it's like, yeah, that wasn't worth it. So that was like one of the worst. That was terrible, I'm telling you. And the amount of people that must get fooled. So let me give you an advance warning now. If you're planning on going to St. Peter's Basilica and you see a passageway that kind of leads to a dome and it has stairs, turn around. It's not worth it. Yeah, just letting you know that it's not worth it. But that's the view I got, and that's the square that I was in earlier, where I did that 360 kind of like image from. This is what it looks like, St. Peter's Square, which is actually a circle, but you get the idea. So there's a view from the top, and you can see all the statues going all the way around it. Very impressive, I have to say. The statues are very impressive. Oh, there was a video. I wonder if that's worth showing. So you get a view of Rome from up there. I guess it's kind of an impressive view. I didn't really appreciate it because I was sweaty and deceived. I'm so glad you guys appreciate it. And there's, I think, a view from the outside. Yeah, that's a view from the outside. on the way back down. Okay, so now we're in the Vatican Museums. So I think now we can get some interesting stuff. Okay, so this is now where we're inside the Vatican Museums, all right, and you can see we're gonna get a lot of these statues now. Now, there's a theme in the Vatican Museum that is going to be relatively shocking to you because it was shocking to me. You have a load of these really. Now, the difference is that inside the Vatican Museum, to me, these ones felt definitely age-wise more authentic, okay, than some of the stuff that we were seeing maybe in like the Basilica. These felt kind of old. I felt like these were from somewhere. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not sure exactly where they were from, but they were definitely from somewhere. So this statue here, the reason I captured this one is because first of all, I thought the head was too small, and I think you guys can hopefully can see that, especially when you can see in comparison to the size of his hand. I thought the head was too small for the body, but also I thought the arms are very long. I always look at the arm length, and I'm just looking at the breadth of the shoulders and then the length from the shoulder to the elbow. If that comes anywhere near the waistline, yeah, which you can kind of see the waistlines here on this character, I kind of feel like I know what proportions I'm dealing with, and they're not, probably weren't originally fully European. This doesn't feel like it was, these proportions are fully European to me. So this is one of the statues that I just took a picture of it because I got that hunch. Once again, head too small. Okay. It looks, there does look to be a change around there. Okay, neck a bit too long. You guys can see that, can't you? Okay, there does seem to be a change around there, and the neck looks too long to me. So, yeah, and this is where I'll draw the comparison once again to what we were looking at earlier, because robe-wise, yeah, this looks very, very consistent to me. You're either going to call this Roman once again, or you're going to call this African. Okay, this is, to me, you're going to call this Roman, this attire I'm talking about, so the dress code, you're going to call this Roman or you're going to call it African, because those are the only two cultures where you see this represented. But then you have these proportions that to me look wrong. They don't seem to be consistent with each other. So that's why I captured that image, not consistent. So I'll leave you to lead your own conclusions. I'm not going to say what it is or what it isn't, but I would say with relative comfortability that head is probably not consistent. It's probably not created with this body, just for those reasons. Is this the same? Yeah, is this the same one? This might be the same one from another angle. I mean, just to press home the point. Or this might even be a different one. No, it's the same one, but you can see proportion-wise that head is too small. Okay, especially for a really solid piece of art like this. Surfactant said vandals vandalize. They certainly do. And I would say this is a vandalized piece of art. Those of you who know what vandalism is or where the word originates from, the word originates from the people, okay? Not the other way around, okay? The word vandalism originates from the people. That's where we get the word vandalism from. So the Vandals were very unique in their approach to art and things that were around them. Let's carry on. Excuse me, I don't want to get my stream shut down. I might just skip over that one. Oh no, here we go. All right, so here's another one. Once again, I was just looking just at the way the garments were draped there, and it just struck me. Once again, huge cultural borrowing there. Okay, that just looks so, even with the way the undershirt kind of cuts off at the elbow, I've seen this so many times. I've seen this so many times. I can't even state. Okay, this is very, very normal African attire being worn here. Very normal. I'm gonna skip over this photos. The reason someone asked what was the reason for the naked statues, I've just got all of those images. I didn't know what I was going to be showing on a live stream. I haven't filtered them yet, but I can't show the naked statues obviously on a live stream. Would have to do that on a separate one. That's not YouTube. So yeah. Now, one of the observations I made as well is that the women, when they're depicted, and this is something you've got to pick up on as well, so I'm just going to throw this around. Someone said this is Rwandan female dress. You know what? I'm going to quickly find an example of that. Oh me, oh my. That's why I love this community, you know. Sorry, this is why I absolutely love this community, you know. This is why. See, sometimes with you guys, I just have to ask the question, because if I didn't ask you the question, yeah, then I wouldn't have got the answer. Okay. Can someone tell me where else in the world do the women be dressing like this? Sorry. Let me just open a new tab. Yeah, where else in the world did the women be dressing like this? Yeah, other than Africa. Oh my gosh, I love this community so much. Let me just quickly open this in a new tab as well. Okay, in case you guys ain't catching this, yeah? In case you guys ain't catching this, in case you guys are missing something, yeah? can we just, yeah? When we talk about the way these people are dressing, the way these alleged Romans were dressing, why is it so consistent with the way modern Africans are dressing? Thank you, by the way. Who was that gave me that insight? Because I'm going to have to just give you a big old shout out there. Wildflower. You smashed it. Thank you for that. Everything. And I want you to also just take into account as well, because this is one of the things I was going to touch on. Even once again, we are going to talk about bodily proportions here. Okay, we are going to talk about stature and bodily proportions here. We're going to talk about the length of the arms here. And one of the things I was actually going to touch on is you'll see a theme with a lot of the female statues. Okay. One of the biggest differentiators between, I guess, your modern European and Africans is obviously going to be held in the air. So thank you to Renaissance Woman who has just become a supporter. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. New member. Appreciate the support. So one of the things that we're going to touch on is that when you look at these statues of these women, you notice something with the hair, and the hair is always modified, or I'll say modified. That's conjecture. I have no evidence for that. The hair is always based on a short style, i.e., your average modern day European woman wears their hair out. Okay. And I'm guessing it was the same historical long hair. It's a big differentiating factor, kind of like, even though we do have Africans with wavy hair, it is quite a big differentiating factor that I would guess, as it is now, as it was then, African women, when their hair is natural, tend to wear it in up styles. Okay. And this is something that you see in the um, artwork of the nobility. As you know, I believe there's been quite a bit of artwork that has been washed, palm washed, if you catch my drift. Okay. But one of the things is they tend to leave the hair as it was. So you got all of these European noble women with these weird, quirky afros, like Queen Elizabeth I, who has, for some reason, the palest skin, the pointiest features, but then more afro hair than me. And they just say, oh, well, it's just normal. You're just supposed to go, okay, cool. Yeah, she just had a red afro. Even though they don't have that anymore. Yeah. Even though it doesn't have, for some reason, this was the case so much in the, in the Middle Ages. All of these people were walking around with afros and up styles, even though that wasn't the natural growth pattern of their hair. So what you'll find in the statues, and I'm rambling a little bit, is other than the fact that they're wearing, as you can see, traditional Rwandan woman's dress, yeah. Other than the fact they're wearing African clothing, you're also going to note that all of the women have their hair in up styles. Now, why is that significant? Because if the hair was initially shown a different texture, okay, it's very easy for me to carve a few lines in an afro and make it look like European hair. What I can't do is add extra limestone and make it long. Does that make sense? So it's easy for me to vandalize / modify something into what appears to be a European style if it's in an up style. But what I can't do is make it look long. And for some reason, I don't know why, but we're not going to find any women with hair that is not in these kind of up styles. And I just found that interesting. I was like, why do none of the women have their hair down? I've seen plenty of frescoes with their hair flowing, but how comes when it comes to these statues, we don't see that? We always see the hair in some kind of a modified up style. Now, that could be a cultural borrowing, just to be clear. That could be a cultural borrowing. It could be, once again, if they're dressing, the same as Africans, there's no reason why they wouldn't want their hair to appear like the African women's hair, which they associated with crowns. That could be the case as well. Okay. So there's lots of different reasons why this is the case, or could be the case. But I always like to use Occam's razor. And to me, if you're vandalizing part of the statue, then maybe you'll just, that kind of makes sense to me. But anyway, let's carry on, because you're going to see that for yourself. Thank you once again. I have to give a big shout out. Thank you, Wildflower, for showing me. Yeah, so now everyone could check in their own time. You don't have to wait for me to show. You can check out traditional Rwandan women, how they dress, and tell me why all of these Roman women dress like Rwandan women. Yeah. So this brings us into the Vatican Museums. Like we said, we had a look at a few of the statues. This is the Egyptian section, this was a bonus, by the way. The Egyptian section, I wasn't expecting this at all. Okay. I thought I was just going to see a bunch of Roman stuff, and I'm confronted with this amazing statue of Sekhmet. It's been broken down a little bit, and you can see here, very interesting artifacts. Kepa Min Ra. Okay, I'm not going to try and read the whole thing. Trying to see his cartouche, that is E. So that would have been. So I think, okay, if I remember correctly, when you see the cartouche Kepa Min Ra, this is normally associated, this combination is normally associated with Tutankhamun and Akhenaten. So I don't know if this is something to do with them. but I feel like this might be 8th dynasty because when you see the Keper, Min, Ra, Tutankhamun and Akhenaten both have that. So I don't know if this is associated with them. What does it say here? Yeah, it says 18th dynasty. It says Thutmose. This one says Thutmose. So there you go, Thutmose, not Tutankhamun, but it is 18th dynasty. So right dynasty, it looks like. Now, the one thing I'll say about the artifacts, the Egyptian artifacts, is we're going to come across some wild fakery in a moment. Now I'm going to show you, and it's going to really when you see it, you guys are going to know. But there's some wild fakery going on. But there are some decent pieces that are worth looking at. Some steles from different periods. I remember seeing a couple that were either not skillfully crafted or just had me questioning their authenticity just because they weren't, like, even some of the hieroglyphs. I know when it came to the hieroglyphs, I'm sure that they would create stencils to ensure that they were consistent. But then you had some that felt really hand carved, which once again had me questioning, because I'm sure they didn't use, well, I say I'm sure, I'm relatively sure they didn't use hieroglyphic carvings in the same way they wrote Demotic and Hieratic script in terms of it being freehand. I'm sure whenever they started a process of carving on the wall, they would create a set of stencils to ensure that they were consistent. So when I see these kind of like handcrafted ones, I'm not going to say it makes me suspicious, but it does make me, it makes me want to go to an expert, you know, like a Smash Rockwell, and make sure that we're getting some kind of, that we can trust that that's the authenticity. So I'm not saying that these ones aren't authentic, but it just raised the question mark for me because some of them felt very, very, very freehand, so to speak. I mean, these ones have been damaged beyond recognition in some points, but yeah, some of them just didn't look right to me. So maybe they're duplications of existing ones, but they just haven't told you it's a duplicate. That is quite common in Egypt as well, where they'll create fakes and duplicates. See, this is more kind of what I expect in terms of the skill and the craftsmanship when it comes to ancient Egyptian, you know, wall art and hieroglyphics. This is kind of more what I expect. It tends to have a little bit more of a consistency about it. Once again, these have a handcrafted feel to them. When I looked at these, yeah, it's not what I'm used to seeing of ancient Egyptian work, if I'm going to be honest with you. Now, here we are. Now we're on to the pièce de résistance of fakery. Yeah. I can't believe they're actually showing this. So I came across this, yeah. And I was like, what in the Temu / Etsy is going on here, yeah? Because I was like, this is not ancient Egyptian. Like, what the hell is going on here? I saw this and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is just not ancient Egyptian, yeah? It looks like something you bought from Team. I was like, this is terrible. Now, it's really funny because I had a bunch of things where I feel like they must have been doubtful whether or not to put this on this on display or not, man. It looks like Vision from the Avengers. I lie. I was like, first of all, I don't think I've seen a man, shown with nipples, but why are they on his armpit? So he's got nipples on his arm, and then he's got this band across his chest, which I think they were halfway deciding about whether or not they're going to address him or not, and they just decided to leave a fold under his tits. It's just terrible. And here when you see this, yeah, what actually makes this funny is when you see the original that they've obviously tried to create a replica, or not even a replica from, a fake from, which, and you can see the original, which is a genuine Egyptian artifact. So here's the fake and there's the original. I'll show you the original in a moment. Here's the fake, and I was just like, are they kidding me? This is the worst. Like, I've never seen in the many years that I've been studying Egyptian artwork anything that looks remotely like this. This is the most, like, this is awful. This is just woeful. Like, proportions, everything about this is just off. Like, why has he got this protruding eyebrow ridge? Why does he not look human? Okay, why does he look like someone said Vision of the Avengers? It's like, what is this under his chest? This is not something I've ever seen in Kemet. What is that? His skirt? Is he a boxer? Is he Tyson Fury? Has he pulled his shorts up to his belt line? I mean, up to his chest to avoid low blows. I don't know what's going on here. I'm just well confused. This was the worst fakery I've ever seen coming out of. Now, I don't know what they've done here. Initially, I thought, well, maybe they've just knocked off the top half and then replaced it because I saw all these cracks. And then I just think this whole thing is a fake, a terrible, terrible fake, because even the hands don't look right. Everything about this just looks incorrect. And it's really terrible because I was like, oh, well, maybe they're going to display and actually admit that this is a duplicate, or because sometimes they do that. They'll put a big fake up or something from a different time period, put it up, and just hope that no one's going to read the plaques. It's terrible to do, but sometimes it's what they do, and you accept it. But on this case, look, they actually trying to pass this off. Yeah, statue of physician Semitic, okay, 26th dynasty. Now, I know some of you are going to straight away say, well, that's not an indigenous dynasty anyway. It doesn't matter. This is not even from that dynasty, because when I show you the original, the proper one, so let me just quick, this is, now you can straight away see this is ancient Egyptian artwork. Okay, this is what ancient Egyptian artwork looks like. Whether or not it's an indigenous dynasty is neither here nor there. And 26th dynasty, I think, is that Persian? Someone remind me what 26th dynasty is. I'm not going to bring up my book at the moment, but this is the original. Okay, and the fact that they would put them, so this one's 27th dynasty, sorry, by the side. The fact that they would put these side by side just shows how little shame they have. Yeah, it shows what little shame they have, because anyone can see the genuine ancient Egyptian artwork. Anyone can see that this, I would not question this one's authenticity. This is what you expect to see from ancient Egyptian artwork. The eyebrows, okay, in the effort to display hair, they will always raise the surface by a couple of millimeters. That is a consistent. The one that we just saw had no eyebrows. Okay, it didn't have any eyebrows. The face, as you can see, will normally be prognathic to a degree. As you can see in this one, is quite prognathic, has a normal African kind of head shape going on, and it looks genuinely like a human being. Yeah, as opposed to this absolute monstrosity. Like, what were they thinking putting this on display? Seriously. And it made me, the good thing is, it makes me quite confident in the fact that they're exposing themselves to have no shame in putting this on display. The fact that this is still on display in 2020, one would have hoped they would have withdrawn it now that people have things like the internet where they can share things, and it's like, okay, yeah, we can't get away with these. We can't get away with doing this crap anymore. Let's get rid of this. Any idiot, any mild casual Egyptologist worth their weight in salt will know that this is an awful fake. It's not even a good fake. It's a terrible fake, and we shouldn't have it on display. But no, their arrogance will keep things like this on display. I mean, why is his mouth so narrow? Oh my lord, what in the Etsy is going on here, man? This looks like it's on sale for $42.99. I can't believe they've actually got this. This is just dire. But anyway, I wanted to share that with you guys. When I found that, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have a field day showing this to you guys. What a load of crap. So yeah, there's that. I mean, there's even this one. I didn't even notice this one. I guess in my eagerness to show you this one. This one doesn't have a head. But I'm finding all this regalia on this one a little bit peculiar as well. I don't know. Even something about the shape of the hands. Even this one feels funny, if I'm going to be real with you. I know it's got marionette all the way around it, but it feels funny. This one doesn't feel right either. Okay. Even though it's missing the head, this one just doesn't, I don't know. This one doesn't feel right. This is the only one, like I said, out of this triad of pieces that I felt, yeah, no, this is genuine comedic artwork. This is kind of what I expect to see. Anyway, that was that. So that was a bit of fun. Some more pieces. 20th Dynasty. So some New Kingdom artwork there. Once again, they have a few of these pieces, like I said, that are just a little bit haphazardly created. So I don't know if they've managed to get some of the bottom rung of artifacts, or if they've been taken from, I don't know. Now this is more kind of what I expect to see in terms of the consistency of the characters when it comes to ancient Kemetic artwork. This one to me feels genuine. Okay, you can see the preservation of the detail in the hair. Okay, detail in the face, even though they've tried their best to get rid of it. This one, the different use of depth. This to me is what I expect to see when it comes to genuine ancient Kemetic artwork. This is a really nice piece. Let me see what this is. Did I get the so this is 18th dynasty. Yeah, it looks 18th dynasty. So it's a fragment from a Memphis tomb. So yeah, it's been yeah, I mean, Macy's correct, it's been vandalized obviously, but they always are when the face is African. That's always the case. It's almost like I don't see it anymore. I almost expect the the nose and the lips to be hacked off on all these artworks when they're African, but it's almost like I can see past what they've hacked now sometimes and see what it used to look like. Okay. This is a nice piece as well. Once again, so this is what I was talking about earlier about the use of stencils. If you look at the more genuine work, you can see there's a real evenness to it. And this is what, there's a consistency in terms of the way the characters are being drawn. It doesn't look or feel freehand. And this is what I expect to see. So this is striking me as a more genuine piece of work here. Once again, and the faces you'll see will always be vandalized to kind of hide the Africanity of the features. Well, this one's been preserved quite nicely. Aren't we lucky here? Look at that African face. Managed to survive. That's fortunate. So this one's from, yeah, once again, 18th dynasty. Stele of Ptolemys and his mother, Rui. That's actually a really nice piece. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, this one is I mean, this is a very nice piece of art. Even with the features hacked off, you could see that's a really, I want to say almost, yeah, that's giving me really strong Sudanese vibes feature wise. Let me see if I've managed to, have I taken a picture of what that is? I might have a picture of the plaque in the next one, I hope. Yeah, here we go. So this is 26th dynasty again. Psammeticus, so sarcophagus belonging to Psammeticus. So this is the, oh, so that would have been the same character that we saw earlier from the 26th dynasty, the one that they turned into a vision. That was apparently from the tomb of Psammeticus, the one with no eyebrows. Oh Lord, seriously, you can't write this stuff. This is genuine. Okay, once again, this is genuine ancient Kemetic artwork. You can see it straight away. So this is a coffin. You can see how it's been rubbed down like they always are. You can see shards of the original brown paint color that would have been covering. And then there's a series of shabtis here. Okay. Here's the original color being preserved. You can clearly see what you're dealing with here. It's an Osirian statue here, which looks like it was painted in perfect black all over, which would have been the color to represent Osiris, the Great Black. And then there was this picture of this mummy. There was a mummy here, which I'm not going to show you because it upset me. I'm not going to lie. It felt really invasive. And I don't know, I just have a thing about filming. I captured it and I was like, it just felt really uncomfortable because it felt like this woman it was a female, and it felt like she had just been taken out from her resting place and placed on display. It just felt like the most disrespectful thing. So I couldn't show you that one. I couldn't show you that one, to be real. So then you have these coffins here actually, and a lot of these are really consistent with each other. So this is probably from the inner and the outer sarcophagus. And it's weird because I found ones that look like they were clearly represented the same face. So if I was to show you that face that I showed you earlier, to me, that looks really similar to the face that you see here. But when you go to the plaque, you can see it says, okay, 4th and 3rd century BC, which sounds about, actually that might, 4th and 3rd century BC would say that this is Ptolemaic era. 4th and 3rd century would be Ptolemaic era. But then, yeah, so 4th to 3rd century BC would say Ptolemaic era, sarcophagus of Semitawi. But then when you have a look at, those are shabtis. We'll come back to those. One second. I just want to show you another coffin. It's a wonderful coffin here. This one over here, which looks to me to be this, it looks very similar, almost the same. And if you look at you get some boat figurines here. Okay. The usual, wearing the usual kind of like shaped, either short twists or afro being depicted there. Either way, it's definitely an African hairstyle. You've got quite a few of those here. So we got here again. So all of these have a really consistent feel to them in terms of shape and features. I felt like they've all come out of the same dynasty, but they all, well, at least the museum alleges that these are all from different dynasties, which I found confusing. This is gilded. Okay, so a lot of people make a a big deal about these gilded masks. Gilded is covered in gold, so therefore there's no color representation being made here. Okay, so this is a funerary mask from the Roman period. And this actually looks, if you look at the Roman period, they do have very similar, they all have this similar look where the craftsmanship wasn't quite up to scratch of the dynastic era. So you get that feel from the Roman period artwork. But I was just trying to, okay, I've gone out of that room now. So I think I just wanted to, I wish I got the plaque, but there was like this coffin, and then there was the other one that I showed you. This one, and then one I showed you at the start, which all felt like they had all come from the same personal era, but were all from different eras. And I just thought, is there something funky going on with the way that they're timing these? But anyway, let me move forward now. I'm sure you guys will feel free to look at some of those images in a bit more detail in the future. Who recognizes this and where this was on display? Because I actually showed this in a previous live stream. Who recognizes this piece of artwork here? Let me ask that question to everyone. It'll give me a bit of a break as well. Jer says Egyptian Museum. I don't think so. Egyptian Museum would not display this. Ramesses, hell no. Yes. Well, did they put it in the Egyptian Museum? They put it in a museum, front and center. Wasn't the Louvre? Told me Cleopatra's son. Nope. German Museum, British Museum. It was. There you go. Jer's got it. It was actually in the British Museum. This was front and center of the British Museum. Literally at the entrance. Okay, so when you actually literally enter the museum at the entrance of the ancient Egypt exhibit, and this is a picture of Antonius. Okay, this is they say it's ancient Roman. I believe this is Renaissance art. I believe this is very recent, and that's baloney. And this was, I think, the gay lover of one of the Roman Caesars or something like that. And they had this front and center because he's in this pharaonic headdress. Once again, confusing timings and stuff like that. Why is why is an ancient Greek, or sorry, an ancient Roman dressing in a pharaonic headdress? Why? You have all of these overlaps going on. You have to question the motives and the narratives once again, because once again it's still royalty and nobility dressing in the manner of Africans. That's the bottom line. You're still getting that. You're still getting this unanswered questions as to why there was this tendency for nobility to dress in the style of Africans. Why have you got nobility wearing leopard skins in Europe? Why have you got them wearing the Nemo's crown in Europe? Why is this taking place? What is going on? There's huge question marks here as to these borrowings that will take place. And I believe this is a new piece of art personally. I don't even think this is old. I think they're reselling it to us as an old piece of art, but I don't think it is. But anyway, it's just it's funny that this is where its home was, in the Vatican. So they must have borrowed this from the Vatican to put in the British Museum. So imagine that. Just the British Museum's like, okay, cool, we're going to do an ancient Egypt exhibit. Someone's gone to the Vatican and gone, oh, can we borrow this statue? We want to put it at the entrance. And it's not even an Egyptian artifact, because we want to deceive people as they walk in into believing that we have something to do with the Egyptian civilization. Do you understand what I mean? Like, do you understand the pathology behind making those kind of decisions? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So when I found out this was its home, I was just like, yeah, that makes sense. That's the really British thing to do, isn't it? So yeah, this is alongside some of these modern I mean, no one can tell me this is ancient. No one can tell me this belongs anywhere in the ancient world. This looks like it was made the other day. What's this one over here? I mean, this one looks interesting. This one looks interesting. I didn't see. I see it was late, and I didn't. Yeah. Anyway, that one looks interesting. I have to say. Yeah. I wonder what's going on there. I don't think I walked down there. I think I was a bit tired there. Yeah. See, and see this one also kind of. Some of these have my interest. All right, so that brings me inside. And this, some of you may notice, because I've used this when I was doing a reconstruction, is the head of Montuhotep or Muntuhotep II, or a head of Montuhotep II. It's obviously been damaged significantly in that its nose and its lips are being completely chipped off, but I recognized it because I have referenced it when I did my reconstruction of Montuhotep II. So yeah, there's not a huge amount we can get from it because it's effectively been knocked off and sanded down. But I got as many pictures from it as I could. This face, does anyone recognize this face? Large protruding eyes, nose missing. That should be a big clue, the missing nose. Think about the pharaoh whose nose has been hacked off more than any other pharaoh in the history. A few of you saying Sneferu. So I found that quite interesting there. And so this one's gonna knock you off your chair, guys. This is a statue of Tuya, and you'll see actually proportionally straight away this will hit you strikingly. She has a very similar stature to most of the 18th dynasty queens, but in particular, Amos Nefertari really springs to mind in terms of her stature. This is very, very typically 18th dynasty. And I've seen this before. This is a statue of Tuya that I've always loved. And I thought, what an amazing statue to see it in life. This is obviously, you can see those broad shoulders, those very long arms, very kind of typical African proportions here. Then it comes to the face, which this is another Caffrey enthroned moment here. And you guys know what I'm talking about here because I've only ever seen this online. So it came to the face, and obviously you're looking at this very broad, round kind of face, very kind of typical what you'd expect from 18th dynasty. And then I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on with that nose? Okay. And guys, I know you can't see it from the front here, but lo and behold, that nose has been entirely replaced. Entirely replaced. They've literally just knocked it off and just created their own one. This is nothing like the original nose would have been. And obviously they've created a pointy nose, which is entirely, I mean, the wonderful thing about Africans is this woman could have this nose and still be very much an African woman. But the point is that this is not her nose. They've knocked off her nose and they've replaced it. And when I tell you that this museum has got literally the most rife practice of nose replacement that I've seen in any museum ever, that will be an understatement. This nose has been entirely replaced. That's just, they've just literally knocked it off. You can see here, there's no, when you see it, there's no connection. There's literally no connection. It's a new nose. And that's really sad because, I mean, fortunately, we have other depictions of Thuya, so we know what her face looked like. And if you look at the roundness of her face, this is actually really consistent with the roundness of the face of Thuya. She has this really round face, which you can see. But that nose is not hers. Someone said, yeah, she has that kind of like stature of a Dinka woman, quite tall and very thin, but that's a very East African thing, you know. Like I said, right up and down the Nile, you will see those kind of proportions. It's kind of like tall and thinness, small hips. Yeah, very, very much a trait amongst those people. So yeah, kind of ruined it for me that they've tried to replace her nose, and even the attempt to Europeanize it. It's like, it's a very desperate attempt because you're not. She still has an African face. This is the bizarre thing. I don't understand why they would do something like that, and they do it so often. It's really quite sad, you know. It's really quite sad. So I can't remember who this was. I think this might be Ptolemaic, but even this statue, which I can't remember. I think this one was Ptolemaic. Let me see if I've got a. Yeah, so this is Arsinoe. By the way, guys, have a look at this here. This is Arsinoe. Yeah, so this would have been within the Ptolemaic dynasty. And if you look at those features, I mean, how African was the Greek dynasties is the question that you have there. You know, people always like, oh, well, they were Greek. They were Greek, so they were, you know, the 30th dynasty were Greek. That means they were white. I don't know. You need to have a look at that and tell me if that looks like an African or not to you. Because, yeah, that looks like a, you know, looks significantly African to me. And once again, the limb proportions should be a dead giveaway. Dead giveaway. This is a, anyway, I know what I'm seeing there. I know what I'm seeing there. No, you could tell me otherwise, but I know what I'm seeing there. So yeah, this is Arsinoe the second, I believe. And this one shocked me as well, because this was another Ptolemaic statue. I was like, hey, hey, that's a Ptolemy, yeah? Wowzers. What don't we know about these guys? What don't we know? What are they hiding about these guys? Okay, I wish I'd got the plaque off that one, but I'm pretty sure that is a Ptolemy. Again, look, elbows once again right to waistline. Yeah, that's Nilotic proportions. Yeah, that's Nilotic proportions. Just telling you that much. I'm skipping through a few of these. This is torso of Godball Apis. So I don't know if that's Horus Ptah, perhaps, or Nas Amun. So, Bess. Some kind of pygmy deity there, I'm not sure which one. Bastet. And some Isis and Osir. This is one of those Nimrod, so Neo-Assyrian period. So this is Neo-Assyrian period, this statue over here. I'm not fully schooled up on my Assyrian, Iraqi Sumerian history here, but this is relatively new in terms of 900 BC in comparison to that region. Let's just have a look. And then we have some cuneiform, I believe, written here. That language they claim is the oldest, but has no impact on the rest of the world's writing systems and has no credible origin story. Just kind of appears and they're able to translate it effortlessly straight away. Just, yeah, has all the hallmarks of genuity. There's some cuneiform again. It's fun. I can't remember what I was listening to the other day, and they were talking about the whole debate between what came first, cuneiform, and really trying their best to create this idea of we don't know which one came first, we don't know which one influenced, but without the ability to create any, like I've stated before, an inability to create any link between cuneiform and ancient Kemetic, any. You can't say that the ancient Kemites took these weird shapes and then turned them into animals and then turned the animals back into shapes again. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. Whereas I'm sure if this script cuneiform is actually what they say it is, I'm sure just like you can do with every other script, you can trace it back to the shape that it originated from, and you can trace that shape back to an animal that fits into the ancient Kemetic style of writing. I'm sure it works in that direction. It doesn't work the other way around, but they really are desperate for this to be the oldest writing form, you know. That's just what they like to do. This debate has been going on for way too long, in my opinion, and it would be nice if we could just draw a line underneath it. If we get some scholars and some linguists to actually approach the subject with a little bit of integrity, wouldn't it? Just to get them to kind of say, well, actually, it doesn't make any sense us having this debate. It doesn't work. I'm going to open up now, actually, at this point for a little bit of time. I'm just literally scrolling through some of the questions, or at least some of the statements in the chat. It would be good to get some questions going. Feel free to ask any. We're actually nearing the end. There's not a huge amount more to see at this stage, but there was a couple of things that literally came to my head that I do want to share with you guys before this stream ends. So I'll be sharing with you shortly. I want to kind of like open it. Wildflower says, thanks, Kin. You're welcome. Told you it wasn't too heavy today, just kind of like freestyling off some of the things that caught my attention. All right, so let's keep going then. Let's get going. Appreciate the vote of thanks from many of you guys. Now, this was interesting. Well, I was in this kind of like courtyard area, and there were these Moors heads everywhere. This is in the Vatican. I found this really interesting. And when I say everywhere, you can see them here, these kind of Moors heads with the blindfold, with their, and this is interesting. This, when they have this band and it's tied over their eyes, this is an act of belligerence, or at least I believe this is a very deliberate kind of like bastardization of a Moorish practice, which was to tie the band around the head. So I say Moorish, I actually believe it might actually relate to European use. Yeah, European use. I believe this is one of their practices, to tie the band around their head and tie it at the back. And you had it in the black nobility. You had it in actually the Moors on the Moors tapestry. And so you had a lot of them who had this, and you can see it on a lot of the coats of arms. They had this headband tied around their head. And when they lower that headband to tie it around the eyes, I believe that's kind of like a way of literally, in some ways, undermining the Moors, or undermining the black indigenous people of Europe. Now, if I just quickly scroll forward, oh, I thought I got I think I got a picture. Yeah, there. So I'm going to pause it there. You can see this entire alleyway was adorned, and when I say literally for meters and meters, literally had these, every other image was one of these Moorish heads. And I just thought, I don't know, it was weird. I was like, why would you do that? You know, and this, obviously this is the center of the Vatican, and this is the Vatican Museum, and this is paintwork, you know, on kind of like paper. So it's not, I'd imagine this isn't like thousands of years old. This might be a couple hundred years old max, maybe even newer than that. And it was just weird. It was a weird thing to behold as a decoration for an entire corridor, to do that, you know. Antebellum Black America just made us interesting points. Said Lady Justice is the same headband covering her eyes. That's very interesting. And I've heard of Dr. Marie Charles. I've tried to get her on the channel. I will reach out to her again. I find her work very intriguing. So here, I'm just going to just quickly pause on this stela here as well that I captured. Once again, wanting to draw your eyes and your attention to the dress code again. Now that you've seen what those Rwandan women and those Benin men who tie it around their waist, and those Akan men, Ashanti men, and various other African societies look like, perhaps you'll see some of these and they'll hit you a little bit different. Now, this one, his private parts are covered up, thank God, so I can show you once again. Have a look at these women, okay? Have a look at these women, bearing in mind what we just beheld. Okay. Have a look at these women. Let me just quickly get a nice picture. Here's an even better one. Okay. Have a look at these women, bearing in mind where women still practice this kind of dress. And just have a look at the way it's being practiced. The replacement of heads is, in case you guys didn't believe me and thought I was making this stuff up, the replacement of heads and or noses is endemic. Okay, endemic. King James just asked a very interesting question, which I'm going to put on the screen. Okay, and then you're going to get an insight into how my brain is thinking. This question is this: how deep into Africa did the Romans go, or did they only stop in Egypt? Let's think about that. Let's think about I call this the what's it called? Obelisk hypothesis. Let's call it that. The obelisk hypothesis. Now, we have these obelisks that are in every single major European city across the world. And when I say major European, I should say major Western city across the world. We have obelisks. And we know that the obelisks come from Africa. Here's my question to everybody. Why do we know that the obelisks come from Africa? That's a question to everyone. Why do we know that the obelisks come from Africa? Questions to everyone. How do we know? Medinetta writing. Thank you, Wildflower. Wildflower's been on point. Guys, you need to catch up with Wildflower today. She's been carrying this live stream. Just kidding. Yeah. We know that they took it from Africa because it has African writing on it. That's the only reason you know. If the obelisk didn't have African writing on them, then you wouldn't know that the obelisk came from Africa, or allegedly came from Africa, because we'll come on to that in a moment. But we wouldn't know that. We would have no association between the obelisk and Africa. Now, the obelisk is a whole piece of architecture, okay, that they've managed to preserve in perfect preservation, carry them from the African continent and reassemble them on the European continent, if we're going to take their story as true. So my question is very similar to King Jam's question, is if you were Europeans, why would you just stop at obelisks? That's my statement. Why? That's my question. Why would you just stop at obelisks? I mean, we only know they took the obelisk because they've confessed to it. If they didn't confess to it, you wouldn't know they took the obelisk. Why has Europe got all of these statues of people dressed like Africans in there? Okay, with heads replaced, heads replaced. Okay, that's not me making that up. Can we agree that I'm not making that up, that this head is being replaced? I remember when I went to the Neues Museum and the Louvre, I showed you the same thing. Roman statues with heads completely replaced. Yeah. It's just a question for you guys to consider. Okay. And then you have all of these. And remember what I said earlier about the hairstyles of women. I mean, if these women haven't had their heads replaced, the hairstyles always being in some kind of an up style, which could easily be modified. Remember I was saying that earlier. It's just something that caught my attention. Okay. And if you're going to say, well, you're just being a conspiracy. Okay, I am. It's not a conspiracy. It's just a question. But then you have to answer my question is, why have they replaced the head? I mean, someone has to tell me that why this head is being replaced. They're not mentioning it on the plaque that they've replaced the head. It's just has been, you know. Let's keep going. Once again, we're looking at the dress code here, guys. Remember, we've been talking about this dress code. Okay. This is African dress. It's just interesting to see. It can be cultural diffusion. In this case, I don't, well, yeah, I was about to say I don't really have a clue of the head being replaced, but that looks like a pretty consistent line going from there right the way through. So literally, as I was about to say, there's no evidence that this head has been replaced. That looks pretty consistent end to end to me. It's just interesting. I don't know. It's just interesting. Once again, it's just an observation. Makes you think about origins. This head here, I'd say that nose isn't original. What would you guys say? I remember what I said earlier. The replacement of noses and or lips in this museum was really shockingly consistent. Okay, really shockingly consistent in this museum. It's like all of the noses had been replaced. It was very shocking. Okay. And it's just like, well, it's fine, we'll just do it. This guy here sitting, once again, this statue really struck me. Once again, guys, head. Yeah, can we see that, guys? Is that just me, or does that look like that's a new head? And if you actually look at even the tonality of this statue, which looks to have some antiquity and some age to it, it's definitely not matched in this new face. So there's a lot going on here. And once again, I'm just compounding that with this cultural continuity. It makes me just think about what this statue may have originally looked like before it, was changed to match the faces of the Vandals. I do want to show you another image, actually. This has got me feeling like I need to show you another image that I really feel like I need to find now. So just bear with me. Got to find an image really quickly. Someone said the head is also too small. I think I'd slightly agree with that as well. Let me just quickly. Bear with me. I'll be with you in just 1 second. I have to find one image that I feel like would be a good one to share with you guys. This will take me just a second, guys. I hope. Thank you for your patience, by the way, on this. It will be worthwhile. I hope. One hopes. Okay, I've got it. Oh, I thought I had it. Has it disappeared? Where's it gone? Okay, I'm in the wrong place. Guys, give me 1 second. Sorry, I know this isn't the most professional thing to do, but I have to find this image to share with you at this stage. If I don't find it, it's going to really bug me. Where is it? Here we go. Gosh, that was harder than I've hoped it would be. Should be just... Here it is. Gosh, that took ages. All right, so I'm just going to quickly show an image. This was supposed to be really brief. Let me open it in a new tab. Okay. So I wanted to show you this image. Okay. This is shared to me from a friend who probably is in this live stream now. But this image, which you can barely see, is a picture of... This is actually Benin rulers, the Benin chiefs, sitting in a Benin court. Okay. An original Benin court. This kind of architecture they told you didn't exist in Africa, but anyway, we're not talking about that right now. But I want you to look at the different ways. Remember I showed you earlier how the Benin chiefs wear their robes around their waist, but I wanted to show you the ones that wear it full body, like this man over here, and half body, like this man over here. Okay. I want you to imprint this image into your mind now. Take a photo. Take a photo of what you're seeing in this image. Okay. Look at these men, the way they wear their robes, the way they're seated, the way the robes drape as they're seated. This is how they found the men in Benin in the early 1900s. Okay. And then have a look at this brother over here, whose head's been replaced. Okay. And I want you to just see the continuity once again. It's just very interesting. Okay. It's just very, very interesting how there is, seems to be continuity between these African dress codes and these alleged European dress codes, but have nothing to do with Vandal or Visigothic culture, and yet seemed to be upheld by them to the point where they have statues all over Europe dressed in this way, which is kind of interesting. Let's carry on. This one caught my attention big time because I don't know. I saw this statue. Well, this brother just felt like he had a lot of swagger. This man. I was like, I don't know. I wasn't feeling that this face was reflecting the swagger that was in the pose. Okay, so this is me culturally appropriating Europe now. It's got nothing. This is me culturally appropriating Europe because I could have absolutely no reason, but there's something very, very, I don't know. There's a lot of swagger in this pose. I was like, this pose don't match this face, man. This dude, there's no way this dude stood like this. Yeah. That was just me. As I walked past, I kept looking at his statue. I was like, right, that dude's just got the swag. You know what I mean? He just stood in a way that I thought, that's not this dude over here. This dude looks like he ate his son. You know what I mean? One day, when there just wasn't enough going around, he just put him on a plate. And this dude looks like, you know what I mean? He's fed this torso looks like, yeah, I carry the gold around here. I don't know, man. That's totally superficial. Ignore me. Me being stupid there. All right, carry on. Same thing about this pose here. I don't know. It just felt swagged out. I don't know. And then once again, I just felt like there was a discontinuity. I also captured this because this build, okay, I'm glad this is covered up because I can show you the picture, but this build is very familiar to certain people. Okay. This is like a very kind of typical late 30s, early 40s build that you'll get, yeah, from I'm just saying, man, it's not very different to what I wake up and see. I'm just saying I don't know. That's why I captured that one. I was like, that looks like a dude, man. That looks like a brother. This proportions and shape wise, you know, it just looked, I don't know, I could be wrong there. I mean, you could probably see why I captured this one as well. That this weird little baby. Are these statues hitting a bit different now when I show you these statues now, guys? Now that we've had a little, now we've had a little discussion, and you've seen, aren't these statues hitting a bit different now? So to me, these statues hit different. These ones in particular. I'm glad that Antebellum guy mentioned. Where's he gone? Is he still here? Yeah, mentioned Lady Liberty as well with the blindfolded eyes. Lady Liberty was supposed to be an African, or when they say African, probably supposed to be a black woman initially. That was the story, wasn't it? And then they changed it last minute. And I've always had questions about when they tell us this stuff, because they're always only ever giving us half of the story. But isn't Lady Liberty's outfit very similar to these women's outfits? And haven't we already established that these women are dressed like African women, or just like modern African women dress? So is Lady Liberty, in fact, let's just pull up the Statue of Liberty. Once again, the question is why, if Lady Liberty was supposed to represent an exiled, you know, or a liberated slave, like they've always sold to us, Lady Liberty, you know, the freedom of the slavery or the end of the slave trade, all that clad trap story they give us, okay, then why is she dressed like that? You know, why isn't she dressed like, you know, in the style that matches that? Why is she dressed like this? Let me just pull her up. I know we all know what she looks like, but once again, it's that continuity of that style that has got nothing to do with America at that time period, okay, and everything to do with how African women dress, or Romans dressed, depending on which one you want to call it. But I'd say it's still a, let me just pull up a picture of the Statue of Liberty in case anyone's forgotten how it looks. Sorry, Lady Justice. Sorry, I'm talking Lady. So I'm talking about Statue of Liberty. Lady Justice is what you're talking about. That's true as well. She's got the blindfolds, but this is Lady Liberty. Can you sharpen up, please? What the heck's going on here? Oh, stupid thing. Should we try again? Open image in new tab. Don't know why it's doing that. Sorry, can't deal with them low res pictures there. Let's go again. Okay. Are we seeing a continuation of everything that we've been seeing today here in the way that this woman is dressed? This woman who was supposed to be a representation, yeah, a representation of the modern people that they had enslaved, okay, or a representation of the European women. Why is she dressed like that? What aren't they telling us about this story? There's nothing, yeah, there's nothing consistent about this story that we're being told, other than, like I said, the fact that modern Africans seem to have preserved this dress code. And is it a part of a wider culture that used to expand from Africa into Europe? That's the question. I want to put on Lady Justice as well, because actually that was a really good point. Let's have a look. We'll see what she looks like. Here we go. So here's Lady Justice. This is the blindfolded one. I'm trying to find the original. Is this the original here? But still that same code of dress being adhered to here. with Lady Justice as well. I can't find the actual single one that perhaps you're referring to. I don't know if she's got multiple depictions. Could be this one. No, this is in Australia. This is a different one. But anyway, same idea being purported there, and it's just interesting to note. Let's carry on. So yeah, remember what I was talking about as well with the hairstyles and the upstyles? Can someone tell me once again what in the Eurocentric is going on with this hairstyle? Because I want to know how a modern European achieves this with their hair. Someone tell me, please. Yeah, I just want to know how that's why were they able to achieve such effective hair texturization in the 1600s. So please tell me why. Yeah. Once again, we're not going to talk about that line running through the neck there. Yeah, we're going to pretend we don't see that. But let's talk about this. Yeah. You can't just put that hairstyle on a European and then just carry on talking and not break your sentence. And here we have Queen blah blah blah, whose hair is in a shaped up afro and blah blah. You can't, we have to talk about this. Yeah, we have to talk about this. This is not easy to achieve. Even your modern African will struggle to achieve such a hairstyle. This takes work and dedication, yeah, and very 4C hair. Yeah, can we be real about that? We can't just gloss over this. And there's multiple, by the way, multiple European female kind of nobility / monarchs who have this. So we have the hairstyle, we have the outfit, yeah, we have the replaced head. Are we getting a bit of a, I don't know, something going on here. Something going on here. And for those who are wondering, well, why would they have preserved the hairstyle? Because the hairstyle was mentioned or referenced or shown in other pieces of artwork. So that's probably why they would have preserved the hairstyle, even if the head had been replaced. Just like they preserved the hairstyle in many of the whitewashed portraits, the hairstyle is always preserved. They preserve the hairstyle because the hairstyle is mentioned in too many pieces of literature for them to actually, replace it. So let's have a look. Female statue, portrait of Julia, daughter of Titus. Roman copy of Greek, 5th century BC, original head replaced. Oh, so they've actually been honest there, replaced formerly at Barberini Palace. So they're quite clear, original head has been replaced. And they've mentioned that many times. So people will just look at this and say, oh, this is the original statue. Well, the original head's been replaced. Okay, quite open about that there, at least in that case. I think I was interested in this one. She's kind of carrying this cornucopia. And it struck me once again. That's the only reason why I was interested in that one. Trying to see if this is a candidate for. No, so this one looks relatively untampered. That one looks untampered. This one just looks, I mean, if you look at this one, I'm sorry, I have to pull up my Benin image again here because I need you guys to see this. This is like a direct 1-for-1 comparison. I have to pull up this image again. Okay, please, for the love of, please look at this brother over here. Yeah. Whoops. Look at this one over here. Yeah. Please. Yeah. Look at the way it's been tied around the waist. Okay, just above the waist. Yeah. And then look at this guy here. And like I said, there's Ashanti Akan people who do this exact wrapping, this exact rolling around the waist. Okay. Someone mentioned the arms could have been broken off intentionally. Yeah, they could have been, but this is really giving me modern African vibes here once again. Okay. Carthage, there could be a, yeah, someone mentioned, Romans looted Carthage. Some of these could be carryovers, but was it the Roman way? Romans weren't vandals, so was it the Roman way to keep statues and then to deface them? Would the Romans have kept the original Carthaginian statues? Because that's a really good link that you've just drawn there. Is it possible that the Romans could have kept the original, and Carthage in terms of its location as well, kind of a modern day Libya, would be a perfect, I would say, joining point for kind of like a Nilo-Saharan joining point, which would link up some of that East African, that Northwest African, West African culture, that Sahelian culture, kind of all in one place, where this dress code would have made a lot of sense. It would have made a lot of sense. So is it a case that, I know it wasn't the Roman way to vandalize artworks into their own style. So if the Romans, ransacked Carthage and took everything, they would have kept it in its original form. So is it a case that the Vandals have come along and then defaced or refaced what they thought was Roman, but was actually Carthaginian in origin? That's interesting. That's very interesting. That could be the case. That could be the case. Or once again, there's always the possibility that this could just be a cultural borrowing. I am leaving that as a possibility. The only thing that makes me wonder is the number of heads that are being replaced on these statues. That's the only thing that makes me wonder. But it could just be a cultural borrowing. Once again, I think this is a part of a wider Afro Latin kind of cultural continuity that's ignored. I think that's one of the main things that I wanted to bring the discussion on about, is the fact that this dress code is still being adhered to on the African continent. You can't deny that. You can't deny that this is very consistent with the way that many African nobles and chiefs still dress to this very day, and were dressing in the time of colonialism and were dressing in the time of pre-colonialism. So you have to put that somewhere, okay, in the context of the way that we define and the way that we understand the way that these people look in these statues. Here's another really weird hairstyle. Okay. Another really weird hairstyle going on here. And what's going on here then? I mean, if this was the original, why did you feel the need to make the nose pointy? Why has the nose been replaced here? You don't have to do that. If you're confident that this was a depiction of, vandals, why did they have to add this point to the tip? Because that's clearly what they've done. This is clearly a nose job here. This is clearly not part of the original. Can we all agree that this nose is not part of the original? Why would they need to do that? It does look like the entire head's been replaced. Okay, it does. But even on top of the head being replaced, the nose has been replaced. So it's like, where does it stop? Where does it start and where does it end? Should we look at some more nose jobs? It's the same one again, just to be clear. Complete nose replacement. Okay. How much has that changed the face of this? If you look at this, was this person mixed? Was they modern kind of North African phenotype? Was they East African phenotype? Was this kind of an Ethiopic kind of looking person before the nose is replaced? There's a lot that's going on there. Okay, or possibly could be going on there. Let's carry on. I took this from behind as well, just so we can see the way the hair falls. Let's carry on. There's more than these. Female portrait. Which one's this one? Here's that hairstyle again, guys. Yeah, there's that hairstyle again. That hairstyle requires an explanation. Okay. I think this hairstyle requires an explanation. And if you were in doubt, yes, the nose has been replaced as well. Okay, so we have new nose, inexplicably afro hair. Yeah, so given the nose has been replaced and you had this big afro hair, wonder what this looked like originally. What's going on? I don't know. Someone said the head's been replaced as well. Very possible. It looks like the head might have been replaced as well. So it's almost like there were two stages of modification. Maybe the first Vandal stage of modification was the head replacement, and then there was a further nose replacement afterwards. I don't know. There's too much going on here. I'm not gonna make guesses. I'm just showing you what it is. You make your own conclusions as to how and why it is what it is. It just is. There's no two ways about it. And just to be clear, if you weren't sure if that nose has been replaced, hopefully that view will show you there's no conspiracy theory going on here. That's a total nose replacement. Hope you guys can all see that. That's not me making that up. Other angle, in case you were in doubt. Another statue, which gives me yeah, I feel like the head on this doesn't look right at all. This head doesn't look right at all to me. That being said, I can't see any seams from where I'm standing. So I'll leave the possibility that it could be correct, but it just doesn't look right to me. I'm going to be totally honest with you. This is Emperor Titus from the vicinity of the Lateran Baptistry, 1828. So, I mean, this is a recent statue. 1828 is well into the colonial era. So once again, that would raise the questions. If this is dated 1828, first of all, why do we have a statue of Emperor Titus dated 1828? Why would we make one of a Roman emperor in 1828? And secondly, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Why was this made? Let's carry on. Another statue. Hair should be questionable. And let me zoom in for you guys. Nose is replaced. Okay. I wonder if we have a head replacement. Yeah, and it looks like a head replacement as well. Looks like a head and nose. What is going on with these head and nose replacements? That's even got me baffled. I'm going to be totally honest with you. You can see there that seam for the head, and you can see that clearly, fully replaced nose with a different piece of stone. It's very interesting because the nose replacements are always more obvious because they are a really clearly newer piece of stone. So it's like the nose replacements are a recent thing. You know, the nose replacements feel like they're the more recent thing. It's wild. And once again, like I said, short styled hair. Okay. Could are the striations of the hair, they could have been added at any time. There's something about this hairstyle. I mean, just pull yourself out of what I've been discussing and just observe this hairstyle as it is, as you can see it, and tell me, do you have any contemporaneous reference for such a hairstyle? If so, what is it? Does it look right to you? These are the questions that I always ask. Well, who wears this hairstyle? How would this be achieved? Could this hairstyle be achieved with modern hair? This is my kind of question that I have, you know. New noses everywhere. I think is this a different one? Yeah, it is. Here's another one. Okay, completely different nose. Like I said, every single statue that I saw had a nose job. Every single one. Someone said, yeah, they look like they've got the hairstyles of English queens. And it's like, yeah, they do. It's a good comparison. It's a good comparison. Some of this hairstyle definitely feels like it would have belonged to people who were mixed, particularly this one. This one feels like it belongs to someone, you know, if you're thinking about that portrait of that light-skinned brother who might be Louis XIV or one of his family that I've shown you before, the portrait of the Moor with the long wavy hair, that feels like the kind of hair that you would have here, which then would explain why they felt the need to modify the nose. Wild man. I had to show you this image. Look at this part statue of a wild man. Look at these hairy legs. I don't think they even gave this one they didn't even give this one a label. It's either that or this could be a centaur, I guess, but I feel like it's a wild man. I'm not sure. And this one's quite close to that Lady Liberty, isn't it? This one over here. Look at that with the hair and the thingies. That's really quite similar. And I wonder what this is, because it makes you think, is this based on a deity? And then maybe there's some kind of deity that they're both linked or related to. Now, this one I kept because this is one of the few unmodified or pieces that didn't look like it had that much modification. And it felt, well, you guys can see feature-wise what it looks like. And look, there's a lion there. Okay. And I'm going to show you, by the way, guys, Athena looking, yeah, perhaps. By the way, guys, I'm going to show you that the nose replacement trend isn't something that's just on statues. This next set of photos is going to blow your mind. Okay. So here, unmodified, once again, you can kind of see why they opted to modify some of these. Okay. But let's have a look here. Now, this is where I'm going to start to blow your mind, guys. Because have a look at this, yeah? I mean, I'm going to zoom out quickly and you'll just see, okay, well, this is weird. And even these look a little bit, I mean, they got curly hair, but it's no big deal. Yeah? Let me zoom in, guys, and blow your mind, because this is going to be something that you're not expecting to see. Every single nose has been replaced. Well, that one hasn't and looks pretty broad. That's a different nose. This one's missing. This one's been replaced. This one's been, well, sanded down. Now, this might not seem significant to you guys, yeah? And I'm very aware, someone just said, yeah, statues lose noses over time. Absolutely, of course they do. But if a statue loses its nose, then just leave its nose off is the point. What you don't do is replace the nose with a nose that is inconsistent with the rest of the statue. These nose replacement jobs, they do it on everything. And I refuse to believe that the nose was the only thing that was fragile when I can see these statues have fingers and other things protruding out of them. So this is where that, oh, well, the noses are fragile argument doesn't hold weight, because when you see it on stelae, when you see it on statues, it's one thing. But I'm going to scroll through every single stele. Yeah. You'll look at these and you think, oh, well, these look really normal, until I zoom in and you start to see that you have nose replacements on steles. This nose has been replaced. This one hasn't. You can see the difference. Let me scroll along. This nose has been replaced. 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 This is a stele, people. Yeah, this is a stele. And they've managed to replace near enough every single nose. This nose has been replaced. This nose has been replaced. Every single nose. So I'm going to zoom out on this, guys, in case you did not see. And by the way, this guy over here looks like he's wearing like a African kufi. Yeah. But I'm going to zoom out on this. No one would guess the fact that this, on this kind of like carved, almost flattened stele, they've gone in and they've managed to replace every nose. You can't tell me that the nose was the most fragile bit. We've got a piece of a papyrus sticking out. So many things sticking out here further than the noses that have survived. These noses have all been replaced. And so like someone just said in the chat, it's almost like a cut and paste job. Just give them pointy noses every single time. These aren't the original noses. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that everyone was black. Let me say that once again and repeat. I am not sitting here saying that everyone's black. I am simply pointing out the fact that they have replaced the noses of every single piece of artwork. That's a fact. I'm just stating a fact. I'm making an observation and I'm showing you the evidence. Okay? This is a photo that I've taken. I've been in front of all these artworks and these noses have all been replaced. The question is, why have these noses all been replaced, even on these steles, not just on the statues? That's not a sensible thing to do. Every single one. And I'll show you, this is not the only, this is a separate piece of artwork. Once again, zoomed out, everything looks normal. Everyone will agree. Yeah. This is just like a normal stele. Let me zoom in, because you only see it close. When it's zoomed in, you realize, actually, this one looks pretty decent. No, this one's actually cool. This one's cool. This one hasn't had any nose replacements. So this one's fine. No nose conspiracy here, but then the noses look a lot more natural here. I think I also would note the kufis that I pointed to earlier. Once again, showing that kind of cultural continuity. But here, this one is one of the rare genuine ones. But one of the reasons I pointed out this one is because, irrespective of the noses actually not being tampered on this one, I felt that the faces looked a lot newer than the bodies. Because if you look at the level of detail that's actually on the bodies themselves, okay, and you compare it with how detailed the faces are, I felt like the faces looked like they had been kind of modified on a whole in terms on this one. That's the only thing. And if you have a look, the plaster work looks newer. So it almost looks like they've been replastered on top. It just doesn't, once again, I'm just going to scroll down, let you look at the bodies so you can see I'm not just making this up. Look, have a look at the bodies. I'm scrolling along. Have a look at the bodies. Look at the level of detail in the fingers. Okay. It looks kind of old, kind of worn. Yeah, like it's seen a few years, but then when you scroll up to the top, you can see there's a lot more fine detail and it looks a lot newer than the bodies would suggest. There's no ripples in the clothes to suggest that it'd be preserved, but we have kind of like fine detail in the hair. So it just raises the question. I mean, look at the level of detail in the clothing in comparison to the level of detail in the hair. So this just looks a lot fresher to me. So yes, this one hasn't got isolated nose jobs, but it does look, even if I zoom out, you can see that the faces just look a bit lighter and a bit fresher than the rest of the work. It just seems like it's been modified to me. And I'm not reaching here. I hope you don't think I'm reaching here. I don't like to reach for kind of things. I'm quite happy to say, no, this looks fine. But in this occasion, it screams that there's something gone on here that didn't go on here. That's what it looks like to me. That's just another image, I think, of the same. Let's move on. Should we zoom in? Yep, we got another nose conspiracy here. 1, 2, 3, 4. What's going on? 5. Should we just say every nose? This one nose and half the fit. Every single nose on this one has been replaced. Every single one. Every single nose has been replaced in this one. I don't think this one has a single preserved nose. Maybe here. This is the only one. And this is the only one that doesn't look damaged. Look how broad his nose is. Look how broad. This one hasn't been replaced for some reason. Look how broad the nose. Now, to me, the broadness of the nose doesn't necessarily make him look, more or less, like I said, African. I'm not trying to black everyone out here. This is not the point. But the point is that, once again, we just have a row of noses that have all been replaced and we don't know what they're looking like anymore. Yeah. Canary, thank you very much for your donation, my brother. I appreciate you. Let me get your comment on screen. Ooh, wow, I'm way behind. Well, you guys have been busy in the chat today. Sorry, guys, I'll be with you in a sec. I've got like 100,000 comments to scroll through. Do we have Wildmen in the chat? Wildmen in the chat. You guys are killing me. Lord. Okay. Brother, you need to hold critical thinking classes for our youth. Well, thank you, brother. Well, look, hopefully we're doing the work here, and people, when we talk about, when we go to museums now, it's important for us to see these things, It's just important for us to see these things because they are taking place and you can ignore them or you can have a look at it. But I appreciate the compliment, my brother. And I appreciate the support because you always are supporting Canary. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Okay, let's carry on. I don't think there's that much more to see. So yeah, there's some close-ups for you. Even though I was able to zoom in. These phone cameras are amazing, by the way. All taken with my phone cameras, but if the case there's any doubt, you guys can see complete nose replacements going on. And once again, I would just argue that if the noses were gone, then why do you need to replace them? It seems to me more of a targeted nose replacement thing going on there. And then you just got these are just random bits of art that I picked up. Once again, this looks like what the untampered nose may have looked like before they put them. So, really wide set, broad noses. This is kind of like the Etruscan. I get the Etruscan vibes from this because the Etruscans kind of had these very, very strong African features, so to speak, in terms of broad noses, broad mouths. But then their hairstyles tend to be what we in modern times now interpret as European hairstyles, but could just be kind of a wavy haired representation of a wavy haired African. And I feel like this is what might be getting hidden by some of these. It's that kind of Etruscan look. And locationally, that would make sense as well if we're talking about, Rome, and a continuation or continuity. This is the vibe I get here. But here's another one. I can't remember if there's a nose conspiracy on this one. Let's zoom in and have a look. Well, we've got a missing nose, missing nose. Is that one that does look replaced from here? That one there. Let's have a look. Missing. This one's not replaced, and this one looks. I don't think, is that one replaced? It doesn't look like that one's replaced. So there's some genuine, not many, but some genuine noses going on here. Some replaced noses, some missing noses. This is kind of a mixed bag, this one. They got that weird kind of kufi going on here. Seem to be quite common. So this one looks like a kind of a less tampered work, definitely. I'm not sure what it represents. I think this one represents, this is a representation of Romulus and Remus, if I remember correctly. It was supposed to be. So this was a contemporary representation of Romulus and Remus. And this one only dates back, 1600, this one. So it's not very old. But even so, you still get the occasional character like this guy over here. There's definitely a few African looking characters in the mix of this one as well, which would be totally normal. We are talking about, Southern Europe after all. So you should have that mix. The fact that they feel the need that they have to hide that mix is what I find bizarre. Just be open about your history, and be open about the mixed personage that was, that made up the European continent. It's not that big a deal. I don't think it's that deep to have to hide it through the sabotaging of artworks. So this is a central portion of the front of a sarcophagus with Christological monogram. I took this picture because actually I remember when I was at school, they had that on my school blazer, this image, and I always wondered what it meant. So it's a Christological monogram, allegedly. I need to look into that more often, or in more detail, I should say. That's some of the steps. What was I? No, okay. So I'm going to take you to the last image of the day. We're nearly wrapping up now. I know it's late here, but I haven't got work tomorrow. It's a Saturday, so I'm just going to quickly wrap up with this. So I'm going to take you to the last image, which is the obelisk. Okay, and this is where I'm going to give you that little bit of kind of insight that I have regarding obelisk, because we spoke about obelisks earlier, and this one, like the one you saw earlier, is one of many, by the way, but this one, like the one you saw earlier, has been modified. It's got a cross at the top of it, okay, and an elephant at the base. Remember what we were talking about, the always with the African fauna, okay. So I know we have elephants in Asia and Africa, but we don't have them in Europe. So it's once again the question there. But here's where I'm going to give you my little bit of food for thought. Okay, I've seen numerous obelisks now in major European cities, and I can tell you they have one thing in common. Okay. Oh gosh, do I not have another image of? Please tell me I got another image of the obelisk. I'm sure I did. 1 second. Sorry, this is another basilica. Here it is. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, cool. So this is it. So thank you. I wanted to show you this image really quickly. So I've seen numerous of these obelisks, and I noted a continuity that no one actually spoke about, these obelisks. Okay, because I can't read much Medunetta. When I do come across these things, I tend to go straight for the cartouche to see who's been named. Okay, so I always go straight for the cartouche and see who's been named. And I noticed something about not just this obelisk, but every single other obelisk that I've seen in major European cities. So these includes the ones that I saw in the UK, the one that I saw in Paris, this one that I've seen, and I think there's another one in Rome that I saw, and that's this cartouche here. And some of you will recognize this cartouche. And this cartouche says Ra, Usa, Ma'at, Ra, Septep, En, Ra. Okay, so we'd say Usa. We don't say the first Ra. We say the first Ra at the end because the cartouche should always start with Ra. So it says Usa, Ma'at, Septepen. Sorry, Ra, Septep, En, Ra. And those of you who know will know that that is the name or one of the throne names of Ramesses. Okay, Ramesses the Great. Now, if you Google these obelisks, you'll get different names. So, for instance, if you Google the one in New York, they'll call it Cleopatra's Needle. Okay, or if you Google another one, they'll give it a different name. They've all got different names, but here's the peculiar thing: every single one of these obelisks have got Ramesses the Great's cartouche on them. This one, for instance, has got nothing to do with Cleopatra. Neither has the one in fact, I'm going to show you an image of the one in the Louvre because I have one stored on my phone. I have to just scroll back a bit just to show you that I'm not making this up, because this is just a really interesting takeaway, or at least I think it's an interesting takeaway for you guys. Boom, 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 boom. Bear with me. I've got it on my phone. I'm just literally pulling it off and saving it to my desktop. Here we go. So I'm going to pull it off. Found it here. Okay, I'm going to open in photos. Open with, there we go. So here's one in Paris. Okay, and I'm just going to zoom in and just show you here, just so you guys know I'm not making it up. Here it is again. Ra, Usa, Ma'at, Ra, Setep, En, Ra. Okay, same throne name. So here's the question mark. You've got all of these tekens or obelisks that are around the world in major cities, and they all have the name Ramesses in them. All of them. They've given them different names to kind of like throw people off, but they all have the name Ramesses in them. Ramesses. So there's a question there that's not being discussed. Now, this is just purely a coincidence and perhaps not, worth mentioning. But the name Rome has always been debated. People say, well, it came from Romulus and Remus, so they decided to call it Rome. But it got me thinking, and someone actually pointed this out to me. The first thing that I mentioned is that, well, actually, Rome sounds a little bit like Ramesses. All right. And you've got all of these obelisks around places classified as the Roman Empire, with Ramesses obelisk up. But also, the name Rome corresponds with the word for people in ancient Kemetic. Okay, they're called Rem Kemet would be the people of Kemet, or Rem. So you'd have RM, which is the corresponding for people. So it's just alternative, which would obviously completely turn everything we know about ancient Rome on its head, but then would bring an explanation as to why we have these monuments to Ramesses all across the Roman Empire. Is there something about the founding of the Roman Empire that they don't want us to know about? Is there something there? Is there something that's worth being discussed? Once again, just throwing that out there as a point of discussion, because not a lot of people would have or may have observed the fact that Ramesses' name seems to be on every single teken or obelisk that is placed around the world in these major cities, which they've just said, oh, well, these were just nice bits of architecture that we just plunked in several places. It's like, well, maybe there's more to it than that. Yeah, maybe there's more to it than that. There's, this could be, there could be a much more simple explanation as to how Rome, as a, who Rome attribute their founding to. And perhaps it's not the story that we've been given. I don't know, but that's just something I threw out there. I don't know enough about Hellenic and classical history for me to push that, but it's just something that straight away came to my head. All I was thinking about was the RM in Rome, Ramesses, and then someone else pointed out, I can't remember who pointed out to me that RM is the name for people in Kemet, and I was like, yeah, it bloody well is. Someone on my forum pointed that out, and then my head was just spinning, thinking about, well, why is Ramesses needles everywhere, or Ramesses, Tekens? Why are they all over the Roman Empire? It's just something worth thinking about. But anyway, that's a side thought, and it's really late, and it's 12:20, and we had a long stream, and we are going to call it a day because that was what, bloody hell, was that nearly 4 hours? That was a long stream. All right, yeah, we need to wrap this one up. Let's call it a day. Thank you, guys. It was a bit, yeah, it was a wild one today. It was just weird, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. It's very, 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 very late here, and yeah, I think you guys probably need to go. Happy holidays, everyone. Have a fantastic time with your families. I know that was a little bit of a round the houses one, but I hope you got some value from it. Yeah. Tinfoil, yeah, this is the tinfoil kufi night. It definitely was a little bit wild, but it's worth exploring some alternative explanations for things. Once again, I don't need anyone to run away with these. I am not proposing any of this to be kind of like, full on this is the truth, but just pointing out continuities and things that other people may have missed, and allowing everyone there to do their own thinking, because inevitably, you guys, one thing that you're really good at is throwing stuff back at me that I haven't considered, just like today's live stream with the Rwandan women's clothing, etc. I don't get those gems unless I open up these discussions with you guys. So hopefully you'll take this on and feed me back some really useful information, and we can build on each other's knowledge. But yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, those of you who've been in from the start. You know who you are. Thank you, those of you who have donated. I appreciate you guys, and thank all of you for your time. I hope that wasn't too wild for you. If it was, you'll get over it. Happy holidays. Have a good time. Hit up the likes. Take care, and God bless. Peace.